I didn't expect Wolverine to live in such a dilapidated and abandoned place. Is this a place of seclusion? This factory area is abandoned, desolate, and devoid of human presence. The surrounding area is barren yellow soil, rarely visited by people. You could say that. This place is almost a desolate and dilapidated wasteland. Looking at the side of the factory, Shu Luo felt a sense of familiarity, as if he had caught a glimpse of it somewhere. But he couldn't remember where exactly. In fact, all the factory buildings are not much different. Shu Luo immediately got out of the car. Carrying the vibranium shield, he lowered his pace and walked towards the factory. I wonder if Wolverine is still inside. According to Hydra's information, Wolverine seems to have been staying here recently. So, this should be Wolverine's temporary residence. He didn't enter through the main entrance. Instead, he entered from the back. He came to the back of the factory and glanced around, and saw a relatively high window. He took a deep breath when he saw that window and leapt up. With his powerful physical abilities, he jumped up and grabbed the high window. The window was partially open. He gently pushed it open, then silently slipped inside. After entering, it was silent inside, without any sound. Below the window were piles of debris. He jumped and landed on the debris. In front of him was a tall shelf, covered in dust, dividing the factory into a storage room for miscellaneous items. He immediately lowered his footsteps and walked towards the house, holding the shield in one hand and the magnetic handcuffs in the other. There was no sound. It seemed that the people in the factory had left. He crossed the shelf and walked to the other side of the factory. There was a dilapidated long table, a few crude military beds, and some other miscellaneous items. No one was there. At the same time, a strong smell of blood rushed into his nostrils. Shu Luo frowned slightly. He walked forward. There were many bloodstains on the ground, but they had already solidified into a dark red color. There were marks of combat on the surrounding cabinets, tables, and iron railings. It seems that there was a battle here not long ago. He looked around. He didn't find anything useful or important. Shu Luo furrowed his brows. It seems that Wolverine has already left. Important things like identification documents and money were taken away together. He walked outside. There were more than a dozen bloodstains on the ground. There were also many bullet marks on the iron bars and iron sheets around, and there were some bullet casings on the ground. Looking at those things, Shu Luo murmured, it seems that the battle at that time was quite intense. He rubbed his slightly throbbing forehead. But where did this guy go now? Indeed, Wolverine is not someone who can stay idle. I was worried that he would disappear before I arrived, and sure enough. Shu Luo looked up at the swirling yellow sand outside and murmured, where should I go next to find this guy? But judging from the situation inside the factory, it seems that more than one person is living here. Several people are living here. Shu Luo squinted his eyes slightly. Wolverine, the Lone Ranger, actually living with someone else, interesting. Since there are no clues, let's go ask the locals nearby and see if we can find out anything. Shu Luo no longer had any clues about Wolverine, so he could only try his luck locally. He planned to find some local ruffians and rogues to inquire about any leads. After all, these ruffians and rogues may not have any other use, but as unemployed wanderers, they tend to be more knowledgeable about information. Especially the local gang members. Shu Luo immediately put the shield back in his backpack and fastened the handcuffs to his waist. He walked towards his motorcycle. Soon enough. A rumbling sound. The motorcycle kicked up a cloud of yellow sand and disappeared into this desolate land. The sun still hung on the horizon, leaving a hint of red light in the dimness, struggling in its final moments. Shu Luo arrived at a nearby town. He planned to find a place to eat, replenish his energy, and inquire about relevant information. Inside a restaurant, Shu Luo sat at the bar, eating a large plate of pasta and steak. As he ate, he casually asked, "Boss, are there any strange things or people around here?" The boss cleared the plates of other customers while saying, "Strange people or things? We have plenty of strange people here. The one-eyed guy next door has a habit of eating chicken butts every day. It's really weird. The Tom family on the street hasn't had a passionate love life for over a decade. In the end, the husband went to Thailand and found a man, and there's..." Listening to the boss's gossip, Shu Luo's eyelid twitched, and he quickly interrupted, "Thank you, boss. The weird people here are indeed weird." He continued, "By the way, boss, if something of mine gets stolen, what should I do? Should I report it to the police?" The boss sympathetically said, "Report it to the police. In this central region, it's very chaotic. The police and criminals are in cahoots. It's too difficult to recover your stolen things." Shu Luo took a big bite of pasta and chewed, "Are the local gangs really that powerful?" The boss whispered, "Of course they are. The local street racing gang is ruthless. From petty theft to murder and arson, they do it all. The boss lowered his voice and warned, so, don't even think about confronting them and getting your things back, or you might not even keep your life. Shu Luo said, where do they usually hang out? The boss said, you don't want to live anymore, do you? Shu Luo shook his head, I just want to avoid them. The boss breathed a sigh of relief, it's nighttime now, don't go to Kanglan Street, because that's where the street racing gang's headquarters is. After some probing and observation. Upon hearing this, Shu Luo squinted his eyes. Street racing gang, Kanglan Street, soon enough. Shu Luo finished his meal, paid the bill, and got up to leave. The boss quietly reminded him a few times, remember, don't go there, if you lose something, it's gone, material possessions are external. Shu Luo, who was leaving, waved his hand without turning back, thanks. With a rumble, the motorcycle sped away. Kanglan Street. Inside a warehouse. Hey. Who's this kid with the backpack? Who brought in a new recruit? Don't know. Don't know, must not be one of us. You brat. What are you doing here? Looking to die? After observing, Shu Luo finally located the hideout of the street racing gang. It was inside a warehouse at the end of Kanglan Street. He immediately walked in. Inside, filled with smoke and haze. People were drinking and playing cards. There were about 10 people, some of whom were injured. When they saw a stranger coming in, everyone was stunned and stopped what they were doing. They looked at each other. A muscular man with short hair spoke up, hey, who is this kid with the backpack? Is he the new recruit? He had a bandage wrapped around one hand. I don't know. I don't know, he's not one of us. The muscular man slammed the cards on the table, stood up, and spoke aggressively, you punk. What are you doing here? Looking to die? He walked towards Shu Luo, his thick silver necklace swaying. Shu Luo looked at the crowd and calmly said, I came here to inquire about someone. Upon hearing this, the crowd burst into laughter. The muscular man laughed even harder, tears shimmering in the corners of his eyes. Damn. What a clueless kid. Coming to our street racing gang to ask for information. Ha ha ha. Coming to our street racing gang to ask for information. This kid is really talented. I'm so amused, does he think this place is a police station? One of them raised his fist, we must give this kid a profound lesson, or he won't know the might of our street racing gang. Shu Luo's expression remained unchanged, do you guys know a man with steel claws? His claws are incredibly sharp, capable of easily piercing flesh and bones. Upon hearing this, the group of people, who had been smiling, suddenly changed their expressions and their smiles disappeared. Especially the injured ones, their faces twisted with hatred, their eyes flickering. F*K. So this guy is in cahoots with that old bastard. So you're with that damn guy. We must kill him today. Otherwise, I won't be able to let go of my hatred. Kill our brothers, and none of them can escape. Let's kill this kid first today. As they spoke, the muscular man next to them, with red eyes, pulled out a gun from his waist. Shu Luo made a move. With lightning speed, he took out the silver shield from behind and swung it towards the muscular man's neck. Pissed. The shield instantly severed the muscular man's neck, separating his head from his body, blood gushing out. The scene was extremely brutal and shocking. Immediately, there was a dull sound of the shield cutting into the wall. Thump. A head fell down and rolled towards the crowd. Seeing this, everyone felt a chill in their hearts, fear rising. Looking at the unfamiliar man who had entered, blood splattered on his face, but his expression remained unchanged, still calm as ever. To be able to calmly sever someone's neck on the spot. The ruthless members of the street racing gang also felt a chill. They thought they were fierce enough, but compared to the person in front of them, they felt far inferior. The person in front of me is the real devil, isn't he? Damn it. Let's fight him. One person saw his brother die tragically, his eyes turning red. Kill him. Are we afraid of him alone? Immediately, the members of the motorcycle gang reached for their weapons, iron rods, machetes, and even handguns. Just as the two raised their guns, Shu Luo grabbed the shield and threw it forcefully, saying, still struggling? Whoosh. The shield flew out horizontally. Pissed. Like the sharpest blade, it directly severed the hand holding the handgun. Blood splattered, and screams rang out. But it wasn't over yet. The shield smashed into the wall with a clang, sparks flying as it rebounded. Pissed. Another hand holding a handgun was severed, and another round of screams erupted. Shu Luo raised his hand and casually caught the flying shield, sweeping his gaze over the crowd, saying, do you still want to try? On the shield, blood continued to drip. At the scene, the screams continued. At this moment, Shu Luo's handsome face seemed to be filled with intimidation. His pitch-black eyes seemed to contain an endless abyss. No one dared to move. Seeing this, Shu Luo nodded in satisfaction and said, "Now, can you tell me about the steel claws?" A thin and weak man with a rooster's head trembled as he spoke. "This happened a few days ago. We were stealing cars on the west side of town and saw a stretched car, so we planned to steal it. But at that moment, an old man rushed out and claimed that the car was his, telling us to stop." Upon hearing this, Shu Luo raised an eyebrow and raised his hand to stop the man from speaking, saying, "Old man?" The man with the rooster's head looked at Shu Luo and nodded slightly, saying, "Yes, an old man who looked to be in his 60s, he seemed weak and lacked vitality." "You think an old man can stop us, the motorcycle gang? That's not." He quickly corrected himself, "That's not something we would agree to." "So, Duma, the man you beheaded, picked up a handgun and fired at him. We thought it was over and were ready to continue stealing the car. But unexpectedly, the old man stood up again, and even extended steel claws." Hearing the man's words, Shu Luo's heart was filled with shock and waves. An elderly Wolverine, lacking vitality, fighting against car thieves. He finally understood why he had a familiar feeling when he saw the back of the abandoned factory before. Because that was where Wolverine lived with Professor X and Caliban in Wolverine 3. Later, he saved X-23, also known as the Little Wolf Girl. A girl created by a company using Wolverine's genes, possessing the same self-healing ability and implanted with adamantium. As a result, she was hunted by the company's people and had no choice but to leave her home. So we knew he was a mutant or someone with super abilities, but seeing that he was old and seemed weak, we fought him. At first, we had the upper hand. But unexpectedly, one of us accidentally shot his car, and he got angry. In an instant, he killed several of our brothers, and then we escaped." The man with the rooster's head briefly recounted their grudge with Wolverine. Meanwhile, Shu Luo tightened his grip on the shield, the bones clearly visible on his palm, and the veins slightly bulging. This showed the turbulent waves in Shu Luo's heart. In the background of Wolverine 3, the older generation of mutants died one after another, with no new mutants being born. The grand disappearance, the twilight has come. In other words, it is now the end of the mutant era. The information Hydra has on Wolverine is also limited. They only have recent sightings and an introduction to Wolverine's life. So they don't know that Wolverine is already in his old age at the moment. So they also have no idea that it is now the end times for mutants. Because the Essex group has added genetically modified ingredients to the daily food of all humans, which suppress and alter mutant genes. Unbeknownst to them, this has weakened the power of mutants and also organized the birth of mutant newborns. This has led to mutants around the world becoming fewer and almost on the verge of extinction. It can be said that for mutants, it has come to the end times. However, according to the timeline in the movie, the plot of Wolverine 3 should happen in a few years in the future. He pondered for a moment. It may be because the Marvel world integrates the mutant world, so the mutant timeline has undergone some changes. The entire timeline has been pushed forward. Furthermore, because mutants have entered the end times and are basically unable to form any fighting force, the older generation of strong mutants have died one after another, and there are basically no new generations. So mutants have become unable to have any impact on the world at large. When Thanos comes in the future, mutants will also be unable to play any role. Seeing Shu Luo lost in thought, the gang of bikers didn't dare to make a move or have any tricks. After all, the deterrence left by Shu Luo was too strong. Various thoughts flashed through Shu Luo's mind. Soon, he regained his thoughts. Looking at the people in front of him, "Do you know any other information about that mutant?" The people opposite all shook their heads. "I don't know. We were planning to seek revenge, but we couldn't find him, don't know where he went." Shu Luo looked at the crowd. "So, you don't have any more useful information?" They all nodded. Shu Luo also nodded. "All right." Immediately, he drew his gun, released the safety, and started shooting, his movements flowing smoothly and swiftly. Bang! 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 The sound of gunfire continued. In a few blinks of an eye, Shu Luo stopped shooting. The barrel of the gun was still emitting a wisp of white smoke. Pung! Pung! The bikers in front fell one after another. Each had a bullet hole in their forehead. Shu Luo shook the barrel of the gun, dissipating the smoke. He holstered the gun back at his waist. He turned and left, muttering to himself, "I remember, Wolverine went towards Eden, which is the location in the X-Men comics." A roar sounded. The motorcycle roared away. The people around knew that this warehouse was a gathering place for the bikers, so even if there was a gunfight inside, no one dared to look or call the police. A few days later, the people around noticed that there was still no sound inside, and combined with the foul smell, they went in to take a look. They discovered the bodies of the bikers and called the police. The police came here to investigate, but didn't find many clues. Coupled with the fact that the bikers were already unpopular, the people around didn't say much about this matter and didn't provide any clues. The people of the entire town felt that this massacre was exhilarating, and they all applauded. Shu Luo visited the restaurant. The customers were eating and chatting. Have you heard? The motorcycle gang has been wiped out. It happened a few nights ago, but it was only discovered today. I heard it was a regular handgun that shot each person in the head, killing them. So, it was done by one person? They did a great job. The restaurant owner heard the news of the motorcycle gang being wiped out, and it seemed like it was done by one person. He trembled all over. He instantly thought of that night when a handsome young man came to eat at his restaurant and asked about the motorcycle gang. At that time, he even provided the man with information about the gang. He murmured, could it be that kid who did it? His heart was filled with shock and turmoil. He thought the young man was just an ordinary guy. After all, he was dressed in layers, carrying a bag, and it was nighttime. But he didn't expect the guy to be so capable. Who? A customer asked. Afraid of causing trouble for the young man, the restaurant owner shook his head and said it was nothing. But inside, waves were stirred up in his heart. After Shu Luo left the town, he used his phone to search for the comic book from the X-Men. He found the address, and he knew Wolverine's direction. He immediately searched through the maps in his mind. And he found a city on it, Oklahoma City. He remembered that Wolverine seemed to be going to this city, and it happened to be in the direction of Eden. Wolverine also stayed here for a short while. But Shu Luo didn't know exactly where he stayed. But he understood that soon, Professor X would lose control and cause a widespread impact. In this situation, as long as he searched online, he would be able to find the location of Wolverine and his team. The setting sun hung in the sky, casting a blood-red glow over the vast and desolate wilderness. A straight road stretched across the wilderness. A motorcycle raced on the road, casting a long shadow. The roar echoed in the empty and quiet land. Shu Luo revved the motorcycle to the maximum, speeding like lightning. Soon. A sign stood by the roadside. It indicated that Oklahoma City was not far away. After driving for almost 2 days and nights, I'm finally about to reach Oklahoma City. Shu Luo sighed as he looked at the sign. These days, I've been checking the news about Oklahoma City. The fact that there haven't been any incidents of mass paralysis indicates that Professor X hasn't lost control. The villains haven't found their group yet. Which means, I will soon catch up to the time when Professor X loses control. He looked at the city's edge that was faintly visible ahead. Soon, I will meet Wolverine and his team. But now, Wolverine is already in his old age, and his body is deeply poisoned by adamantium. His self-healing ability has greatly weakened. The current elderly Wolverine is not suitable for me to study anymore. Shu Luo paused for a moment, then continued to mutter to himself, but fortunately, there is still X-23, the female Wolverine, and the clone of Wolverine, X-24. For me, Wolverine's clone is stronger and in his prime. So Wolverine's clone is the best subject for observation and experimentation for me. Wolverine will fight against the clone, and due to the intervention of a farmer, the clone was severely injured. At this moment, the clone is at its weakest in terms of combat power, which is also the best time for me to take action. As Shu Luo said this, a glint flashed in his eyes. As long as I capture the clone, I can then study the self-healing factor in his body and replicate it. As long as I don't do anything foolish, inject adamantium into my body, and avoid consuming genetically modified food, my self-healing ability will become extremely powerful. My survival ability will reach an astonishing level. Only by staying alive, only by not dying, can the future hold endless possibilities. Soon enough, Shu Luo arrived in Oklahoma City. After entering the city, he found a place that was conveniently located in every corner of the city. In a relatively central location, next to the gathering point of the local casino, there were several local large casinos. Sitting in a corner, browsing the local news on his phone. Just as Shu Luo was tirelessly scrolling through the news, suddenly, a terrifying buzzing sound erupted. An immense spiritual wave of the invisible spread in all directions. Shu Luo, who was browsing his phone, instantly froze in place, unable to move. Professor X has lost control, and the other party is near me. Shu Luo never expected that the place he randomly chose happened to be not far from Professor X, Wolverine, and the others. And shortly after he arrived, he encountered Professor X's loss of control. At the same time, due to the powerful spiritual impact, Shu Luo's ears were filled with buzzing, making him very uncomfortable. However, he quickly noticed something. That was, he could slightly bend his fingers and make extremely slow movements. Although it was far from the level of Wolverine's actions when facing Professor X, it already surpassed ordinary people, and even other mutants who were completely immobilized under suppression. What's going on? Why do I seem to have some resistance to Professor X's psychic power? Shu Luo knew that Wolverine had a certain level of psychic resistance, but he didn't know whether it came from his adamantium or his self-healing factor. But he didn't understand why he also had a bit of psychic resistance. Although it was not as strong as Wolverine's, Shu Luo was still somewhat shocked. After all, Wolverine's psychic resistance was among the top even among the mutant forces. It was not suitable to compare himself with him. He quickly pondered the factors that could generate psychic resistance in his body. Soon, a flash of insight came to his mind. I understand, I know why it's like this. The Super Soldier Serum. The Super Soldier Serum not only strengthened my body, but also strengthened my mind in that terrifying agony. To be precise, I endured the destructive and crushing pain in my body, which greatly trained my willpower, leading to the enhancement of my psychic power. Compared to ordinary people, my willpower is stronger, which is why I have a certain resistance to Professor X's psychic power. Shu Luo didn't expect that he still had a certain level of psychic resistance. This was an unexpected discovery, a pleasant surprise. Just as Shu Luo was contemplating, Professor X's attack suddenly stopped. Shu Luo understood that Wolverine had injected a sedative into Professor X. His body regained its freedom and he could move easily again. He stood up and looked towards the high wall next to him, which was behind the neighboring casino. That is the only place around where people can live. So Wolverine and the others should be there. Shu Luo quickly started his motorcycle and headed towards the casino. But when Shu Luo arrived, he didn't see any sign of Wolverine and the others. He waited for a while. He only saw a group of mercenaries from the Essex group, some running out of the casino, and some getting off a van. One of them was the head of security for the Essex group, a cyborg named Donald, with his arm transformed into a mechanical form. He was one of the people who had been chasing after the Wolverine and the little wolf girl from the beginning. Shu Luo saw Donald angrily pounding on the car door and growling, "Damn it!" Seeing this, Shu Luo understood that Wolverine had already left. But Shu Luo didn't mind, because the Essex group ahead would lead him to Wolverine and the others. They would lead him to X-24, the clone of Wolverine. Because within Donald's team, there was Caliban, who could sense mutants within a 20-mile radius. So they could easily find Wolverine and the others. Shu Luo parked his car on the side of the road and kept an eye on Donald's team using his peripheral vision. He was very careful not to be discovered by Donald's people. After all, this group of people specialized in security work and must have excellent counter-surveillance abilities. Shu Luo picked up his phone and pretended to be an ordinary person, flipping through it. Soon, Donald's team started moving. The convoy drove out of the front gate of the casino and headed north, towards Eden. Seeing the convoy move, Shu Luo put away his phone and hung back behind the convoy to avoid being noticed. That's how Shu Luo drove for another half day. Suddenly, he noticed a small car speeding out and leaving the convoy, moving at a faster pace. Seeing this, Shu Luo frowned slightly. What's going on? Why is this car from the convoy running so fast? But Shu Luo didn't chase after it, because Donald's car was still in the convoy, and Caliban was in it. He just needed to follow Donald's car, no need to pay attention to the others. So he drove for another 10 minutes. Finally, the speed of the convoy ahead slowed down. They eventually stopped in front of a farmhouse. Shu Luo had turned off his car lights long ago, so it was pitch black. He parked his car on the side and walked up, lowering his footsteps. Just at that moment, he heard a mournful roar from the front. "Charles." That was Wolverine's voice. Seeing this, Shu Luo's expression tightened, instantly understanding that Professor X had died, killed by the Wolverine clone. How did this happen so quickly? Weren't they just arriving? Shu Luo muttered to himself. At this moment, a small car next to the house caught Shu Luo's eye. He instantly understood. The one who had left the team was the Wolverine clone. It should be the Essex group's attempt to prevent Wolverine and others from escaping, so they sent out the clone to intercept and hunt down Wolverine and capture X-23, the little wolf girl. Soon enough, the X-24 clone walked out of the building, holding the struggling and roaring little wolf girl. The little wolf girl is a mutant created by the Essex group using genetic technology, intended to be trained as a specialized killing tool. However, as the children grew up, the Essex group found it difficult to control this group of mutant children, as they were a strong source of instability. In addition, they had developed a more powerful and obedient genetic weapon, which is the specialized killing machine known as X-24. So they decided to eliminate this group of mutant children. However, some staff members had developed feelings for these children and did not want them to die. So they escaped from the Essex mutant laboratory with a group of children. Now the Essex group is hunting down this group of children. Shu Luo's gaze fell on the clone. A strong and sturdy body, exuding a murderous aura. The wounds on the clone's body caused by the little wolf girl were starting to heal. Seeing the young and strong body in front of him, Shu Luo's eyes became somewhat heated. This is Wolverine at his peak, with his healing ability also reaching its peak, far surpassing the current elderly Wolverine. After all, the current elderly Wolverine is already sick to the bone, even his steel claws have rusted, and the degree of wound healing has greatly weakened. His combat power is no match compared to before. So X-24 is the experimental subject he desires the most. At this moment, Wolverine finally appeared. His appearance had clearly aged, and he no longer had the sharp and vigorous look he used to have. He gave off a sense of being on the verge of old age. He was currently holding the dying Professor X in his arms. Looking at Professor X in Wolverine's arms, Shu Luo knew that there was no hope for him. After all, Professor X was already very old, his body was already weak, and now he had been pierced through the chest by the clone's adamantium claws, making it impossible for him to survive. Even if the best doctors were brought in, they wouldn't be able to save him. In fact, for Professor X, this could be considered a kind of relief. After all, due to his brain degeneration, he caused serious harm during his twilight years, almost killing the last batch of the most powerful mutants. This is also a significant reason for the decline in mutant strength. It also caused injuries to hundreds of civilians. This made Professor X feel immense guilt and self-blame when he was conscious. Just at this moment, a group of people drove over. This group of people had a grudge with Wolverine before. They mistook the clone for Wolverine and threatened him. How could the clone tolerate this? In a few moves, he directly killed the opponent. On the other side, Professor X finally took his last breath in front of Wolverine. Wolverine's last friend also died in front of him. He was filled with grief and anger, and directly rushed towards the clone to fight. Unfortunately, the current Wolverine is no longer as brave as he used to be. He is just an old wolf in his twilight years. Soon, Wolverine fell in a series of stabs and screams. He lay weakly on the ground, blood gushing out uncontrollably. The clone saw this scene, he just sneered. And at this moment, boom! A 7 to 8-seater car raced forward and crashed into the clone, impaling it on the spikes. The spikes pierced through the clone's body, and blood gushed out from the corners of its mouth. Despite the intense pain, the clone only stared at the farmer who had gotten out of the car with hatred. The farmer was the owner of this farm, and his entire family had just been killed by the clone in front of him. He was barely hanging on, relying on his hatred for the clone to persist until now. He looked at the still-breathing clone, picked up his shotgun. Bang! He directly blew up the clone's eyeballs. The clone fell silent. But Shu Luo, who was standing nearby, knew that the clone was not dead yet. After all, with such a powerful healing ability, these injuries couldn't kill him. But Shu Luo didn't make a move immediately, because it wasn't the right time yet. The clone's ability hadn't reached its peak yet. Just wait a little longer. Dr. Les, from the Essex Corporation, the one in charge of the new mutant program, would inject the clone with mutant serum. To make the clone's ability reach its peak. Definitely, at the moment, the clone was still in a heavily injured state, just that it had regained consciousness. There was no need to exert any effort to deal with it. This was the moment for him to make a move. At this moment, the little wolf girl noticed Shu Luo hiding behind the bushes. She stared at Shu Luo with a slightly fierce expression, baring her fangs. Shu Luo let out a sigh. He didn't want to alert the people from the Essex Corporation right now. After all, Essex's firepower was formidable, and they also had Donald, the bio-human. He might not be able to take down Essex's mercenary group. He calmly looked at the little wolf girl, put his index finger to his lips, and made a gesture for silence. Whether it was because Shu Luo was handsome, harmless-looking, or because of his calm and non-threatening gaze, or maybe both, the little wolf girl withdrew her fierce expression and just glanced at Shu Luo. Seeing this, Shu Luo felt a slight relief. On the other side, after the farmer shot the clone, he turned towards Wolverine. He had originally wanted to shoot Wolverine as well. After all, in his eyes, all of this was caused by Wolverine and the others. So he directed his hatred towards Wolverine, but as he raised his gun, he collapsed. Already heavily injured, he couldn't hold on any longer. The little wolf girl just glanced at Shu Luo, then ran towards Wolverine, helping him up, and the two of them drove away from there. On the other side, the people in the convoy witnessed this scene. But they didn't immediately chase after Wolverine and the little wolf girl. Instead, they headed towards the X-24 clone. After all, for the Essex group, the value of the clone was higher. More important than the little wolf girl, Clatter. From the convoy, a group of fully armed mercenaries emerged. Following closely behind them was Dr. Les, the person in charge of this mutant weapon program. He was holding a small box in his hand. Inside, you could see a bottle of green liquid. Seeing this, a gleam flashed in Shu Luo's eyes. Here it comes, Shu Luo's peak state Wolverine clone. Dr. Lai approached the clone. At this moment, the clone had already been pulled out from the spikes by the mercenaries and laid flat on the ground. However, he did not immediately help the other person. The leader of the mercenaries, Donald, asked, "Aren't you going to inject him with the mutant serum?" Dr. Lai calmly replied, "He hasn't regained consciousness yet. The serum can be better absorbed and its effects can be better utilized when he is awake." Upon hearing this, Donald shrugged slightly and said, "All right, then let's wait for a while. Anyway, we have Caliban, so we won't lose track of these two guys." And so, the group waited quietly for the clone to wake up. Having suffered such serious injuries, especially a head injury, even with Wolverine-like healing abilities, it would still take some time to recover. Shu Luo, who was beside them, naturally had to wait as well. He further lowered his body and buried himself in the bushes. At night, in the field, there were many mosquitoes. Slap. 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 The mercenaries from Essex kept slapping their bodies to fend off the mosquito bites and scratching the bitten areas. "Damn, there are so many mosquitoes here. Damn it, is my blood tastier? Why are so many mosquitoes targeting me? F*K, if I had known there would be so many mosquitoes, I would have brought insect repellent. Damn it. Stop F*King biting me." Faced with the annoyance of mosquitoes, the group cursed and complained. Shu Luo's situation wasn't any better. Mosquitoes buzzed around his ears. Mosquitoes landed on Shu Luo and sucked his blood. But Shu Luo remained motionless, like a statue. It wasn't that Shu Luo didn't want to move. In fact, the parts of his body that were bitten by mosquitoes also itched. But he couldn't move, because he couldn't be discovered right now. So he had to endure the itchiness on his body. Shu Luo had already changed a lot, especially after experiencing the baptism of the super soldier serum. His willpower had reached an astonishing level. So he could restrain the constant mosquito bites, remaining motionless and as steady as Mount Tai. Time passed like this. It was unknown how long had passed. The sky seemed to be getting brighter. Dr. Lai and Donald were starting to feel drowsy. At this moment, the clone lying on the ground suddenly opened his eyes. Seeing this scene, one of the mercenaries quickly spoke up, "Dr. X-24 is awake." For Shu Luo, this voice was the most beautiful sound, like celestial music. This journey was about to come to an end. Shu Luo's eyes were bright and focused, looking ahead, whispering in his heart, "It's about to begin." Dr. Lai woke up, a hint of joy flashing in his eyes. Finally awake? He quickly got up and walked towards the clone. He took out the bottle of mutant serum and installed it on the syringe. Looking at the clone, his tone was gentle, "Don't worry, this is something that will heal you. Strictly speaking, you are still a newborn, just born not long ago, and your body is as fragile as a baby. You need nourishment. This thing will enhance your healing ability, restore your blood vessels and epidermal tissues, and increase your matrix cells." Saying that, he injected the serum into the clone's body. After completing these actions, Dr. Lai stood up, walked to the side, and put the syringe back into the box. Not far away, Shu Luo saw that the injection was finished and his eyes instantly lit up. It's starting. He took out a headscarf from his pocket and covered his face. Then he put on a hood. Instantly, his entire face was completely covered. He glanced at the positions of everyone, looked at the surrounding environment, and engraved everything into his mind. Boom. Shu Luo shot out like a cannonball, rushing towards the clone on the ground. He reached behind his back and pulled down the shield. The surrounding shrubs were easily broken. Shu Luo's sound instantly caught the attention of the mercenaries. Who are you? Identify yourself. Damn, someone's here." Lai Si turned around and saw the direction Shu Luo was rushing towards, instantly understanding the other party's motive. He shouted, "This guy is here to steal X-24. Kill him. We can't let him succeed." Donald looked at Shu Luo's astonishing speed, his pupils shrinking. That is definitely not the speed of an ordinary person. Damn it. This speed. He's not an ordinary person. The other party is either a mutant, a super ability user, or someone with enhanced abilities. Donald raised his gun and shouted, "Fire!" Bullets interweave and attack. Kill him. Ding ding ding. Bullets flew out one by one, rushing towards Shu Luo. Shu Luo raised his shield and blocked the bullet attacks. He looked at the large tree in front of him, his mind spinning rapidly, like a computer, calculating the position of each mercenary. calculating the angle at which the shield should fly out, the angle of rebound, the force required, and the throwing technique to be used. These things may seem very complicated, but Shu Luo calculated them almost in the blink of an eye. It's as if calculating angles and forces is his instinct. In an instant, he reached a tree, and the veins on his hand suddenly bulged, a burst of brute force surged out. Whoosh! The shield in his hand shot out. Like the most powerful arrow. Rushing towards a mercenary, it directly severed the wrist of the mercenary holding the gun, causing a scream. The shield didn't stop, it collided with the car's shell at an angle and bounced off, rushing towards another mercenary. It flew past the mercenary's neck, and a head flew off. Clang! The shield collided with an iron railing and shot out again, cutting off someone's arm. Then he ran towards the big tree. And this chain of shots happened in an instant, a very short time, almost no time for reaction. As soon as Shu Luo's front foot left the tree, he reached out and caught the shield. Once again, he held the shield in front of him to block the flying bullets. Ding ding ding. Sparks flew, a crisp sound. Not a single bullet hit his vital points. As for his body, it was wrapped in a bulletproof vest. As for his legs, there was hardly any chance of being attacked, mainly because they were smaller in size and he was fast enough to avoid being hit. Shu Luo took big strides towards the clone. Stop him! Lai Si roared. Two mercenaries rushed up and were directly knocked away by Shu Luo's bull-like shield. Shu Luo arrived in front of the clone. The immobilized clone stared at Shu Luo, their eyes locked. Shu Luo felt delighted. X-24, a young version of Wolverine, is in my hands. He lifted the clone and used it as a shield to block the bullets flying towards him. Pissed. 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 The clone's eyes widened, and blood silently flowed from the corners of their mouth. What the hell is he doing? The clone coughed, and more blood flowed out. While running away, Shu Luo threw the shield again. Because of the clone, the shield didn't need to maintain its defensive function. The shield flew out, knocking down several mercenaries once again. Lai Si glared at Shu Luo, as well as the shield in his hand. He gritted his teeth and angrily shouted, "This speed, this shield's attack moves. It's you, Steve Rogers, you damn Captain America. You damn guy. What are you doing here? Kill him for me." The attack towards Shu Luo became even more fierce. A large number of bullets were unleashed, seemingly surrounding Shu Luo from all directions. Shu Luo quickly used a clone to defend himself. Fortunately, the clone's body was tall enough to completely cover him. Pissed. 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 Bullets shot out from within the clone's body. Blood gushed from the corner of the clone's mouth, as if it were free. Shu Luo whispered, "It's okay, you won't die, just suffer a bit." The clone couldn't speak, only able to stare at the masked person in front of him. The clone had never experienced such intense emotional fluctuations before. Angry but powerless, he felt extremely frustrated. This was an emotion he had never felt before. At this moment, Donald rushed towards Shu Luo and punched him, saying, "Captain America, don't bring trouble upon yourself, offending us Essex. You better get out of here, otherwise, you'll regret it." Whoosh. Then something faster than Donald's iron fist. A shield came from the side and collided with Donald's body, sending Donald flying. Immediately, it rebounded onto Shu Luo. The people around took a slight breath when they saw this scene. This ability to calculate was simply terrifying. It actually calculated the attacking range even for someone running. Shu Luo continued to sprint, heading towards his motorcycle. Just at this moment, Les shouted, "Bring out the heavy weapons, we must stop them." The mercenaries beside him hesitated, saying, "But he has X-24 in his hands, it's company property. If we destroy it, the company will be furious." Les gritted his teeth. X-24 has self-healing ability. It won't die. We'll just have to spend more time recovering. We absolutely cannot let the other party take X-24 away. This is our latest genetic weapon, and there is still a large amount of experimental data that has not been recorded. We absolutely cannot afford to fail and start over from scratch. Donald climbed up from the ground, his whole body in pain. He swallowed a mouthful of blood and fiercely shouted, "Heavy weapons, listen to Dr. Les's orders." The mercenaries quickly lifted a rocket launcher from the car, preparing to aim at Shu Luo. Shu Luo heard the sound from behind. He swiftly hung the shield back on his backpack and quickly drew his pistol from his waist. Turning his head, he instantly locked onto the enemy who had taken out the rocket launcher. Just as the enemy was about to aim, he fired a shot towards the back. Bang! A bullet accurately hit the enemy's forehead. In the moment of death, the enemy accidentally pulled the trigger. Whoosh! The shell shot out. flying towards the ground beside Shu Luo. Seeing this, Shu Luo's eyes narrowed. Shit. He quickly positioned the clone in front of him. Boom. An explosion, because it was closer to Shu Luo. The strong shockwave directly threw Shu Luo and the clone into the air. They flew forward for a while. Both of them landed near the motorcycle. Shu Luo felt as if his whole body was falling apart, his face twisted in pain, looking somewhat ferocious. He took a shallow breath, feels kinda refreshing. As for the clone beside him, its back was facing the explosion, bloody and looking much worse than Shu Luo. The original text is already injured, and now it's even worse. Shu Luo exclaimed, "Thank goodness you're here." The immobilized clone stared at Shu Luo, as if trying to kill him with his eyes. His chest heaved violently, and blood constantly flowed from the corners of his mouth. It can be seen that the clone is currently in a highly emotional state. Shu Luo comforted him, saying, "It's okay, you'll be fine in a while." Upon hearing this, the clone became even angrier. He let out an angry growl from his throat. Shu Luo completely ignored him. He lifted him up and stepped onto the motorcycle. With a loud rumble, the throttle was opened. The motorcycle sped away, kicking up a trail of dust. Like a long ribbon, fluttering behind the motorcycle. Damn it. We can't let them escape. Drive and chase them. Upon seeing this, Les's eyes turned bloodshot, and he stomped his feet in anger. Yes. Yes. The group quickly ran towards the car. Just at that moment. Whoosh, whoosh. Two things flew off the motorcycle and shot towards the convoy. A few people with sharp eyes immediately recognized the shape of those things. F*K. They're grenades. Take cover. Grenades. Evade. Get down. Quickly, get down. Two grenade-like objects fell among the convoy. Just when everyone thought that two small explosions were about to occur. Buzz. Buzz. Two hand grenades emitted two low buzzing sounds. An invisible shockwave was released inside the car. Some monitoring devices instantly shut down and went black. The cars that were still running suddenly stalled and stopped buzzing. Lai Si saw that the bomb didn't explode, and his pupils contracted. Damn it, this isn't an ordinary hand grenade. He quickly ran towards the car, wanting to start it. But he failed. Looking at the dashboard, it was also pitch black. No matter how he tried to start it, it wouldn't work. Lai Si grabbed his hair. Damn it. Captain America is using an electromagnetic pulse weapon. He damaged the engine of our car. Damn it. To make an electromagnetic pulse weapon in such a small shape, yet with such great power, it must be extremely advanced technology. How could Captain America have such technology? It must have been given to him by Tony Stark. Only a top genius like Tony Stark could create such an electromagnetic pulse weapon. It's really you, Captain America. Don't think that you've hidden your identity, I know it's you. Lai Si roared in anger. Captain America, you will pay for your actions. One of the mercenaries next to him spoke up. We still have Caliban. As long as we call for backup, we can lock onto X-24 and retrieve him. Saying that, he quickly took out his phone, only to find that it was blacked out. Fool. Even your phone can be destroyed by an electromagnetic pulse weapon. Dr. Lai Si was furious and helpless. Donald quickly went to check the other cars, and they were all destroyed. He went inside the house, hoping to contact someone. But he found that the communication facilities were also damaged. Donald walked out and punched the wall, creating a dent. Damn it. The range of this electromagnetic pulse is quite large. Electronic devices within a radius of 50 meters have all been destroyed. He looked at the vast and uninhabited farm and gritted his teeth, saying, "This is the countryside, very remote, and there's no way to find people or cars. Many American farmers have spacious land, after all, the land is vast and sparsely populated. Moreover, with agricultural automation, even a family can handle things on a large field through high-tech farming tools." Dr. Rice clenched his fist, veins popping on his forehead. This guy came prepared. He calculated everything. He prepared an electromagnetic pulse weapon in advance, causing us to lose our cars and communication devices, so we can't track him. What a clever plan. He must have been planning for a long time. Actually, Dr. Rice misunderstood Shu Luo. This situation was not planned by Shu Luo. After all, he didn't expect the plot to reach the old age of Wolverine. He prepared the electromagnetic pulse weapon initially just to prevent Hydra's exoskeleton soldiers. He didn't plan to involve the Essex Company from the beginning. It was only after arriving here that he planned everything and cut off Essex's communication and transportation means. It can only be said that everything was a coincidence. Donald looked at his men and said, "Let's go. 2 people come with me to find a car. The sooner we find a car, the sooner we can track down X-24. Yes. The group of mercenaries replied. Saying that, Donald took 2 or 3 people and ran towards the rural road outside, preparing to escape to the main road in the distance to find a car and a phone. Shu Luo's motorcycle sped along the rural road. 15 minutes later, he finally rushed from the remote countryside to the main road. On the main road, he looked back at the X-24 clone, whose hands and feet were firmly locked by magnetic handcuffs. The injuries on the clone's back were almost healed. The injuries to his eyes were also mostly recovered. There was no blood in the corners of his mouth. It seems that it won't be long before you regain your ability to move, Shu Luo said. The clone heard this and stared at Shu Luo, as if saying, "You're finished when I recover." Shu Luo looked at the clone and said, "I can't let you regain your ability to move, otherwise it will be troublesome. After all, those steel claws of yours still have some power." Saying that, he took out a small button from his pocket. "Perfect, the thing I prepared is just right." In order to keep Wolverine in check, Shu Luo had long prepared a paralysis button with neurotoxin. Neurotoxin, it was something that could paralyze even the later stages of Thor. Definitely, his neurotoxin might not be as good as the Grandmaster's neurotoxin used to paralyze Thor, but it was more than enough to deal with the Wolverine clone. Seeing the button in Shu Luo's hand, the clone looked at the button in Shu Luo's hand and was slightly stunned. Immediately, a bad feeling surged up in his heart. He had a strange premonition that if he was hit by this thing, he would be completely finished. The clone roared in his throat, trying to stop Shu Luo's actions. But he couldn't move. However, under intense emotions, his body began to tremble, as if struggling with all his might. Shu Luo comforted him, saying, "It's okay, it doesn't hurt, it just makes you quiet." Saying that, he pressed the button on the clone's neck. The next moment, 3 needle tubes emerged from the button and pierced into the neck of the clone. A trace of neurotoxin was injected into the clone's body. The neurotoxin instantly rushed into his nervous system, rapidly expanding and instantly dominating the clone's entire neural network. The struggling clone suddenly became motionless, as if frozen. The clone felt something strange in his body, and a hint of fear finally emerged in his pupils. He looked at the masked man in front of him, looking at the calm eyes of the other person, and for the first time, he felt fear towards another person. He felt that the person in front of him was incredibly terrifying. It was as if in front of him was not a person, but a devil. Shu Luo saw this and a hint of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. "Very good, the peak Wolverine is finally in my hands." Buzz. He started the motorcycle again. According to the map in his mind. He raced towards the east. "Next, I just need to find a place. Then I can make use of the self-healing factor you have given me." On the other side, Donald and the others wasted a lot of time before reaching the main road outside. Then they quickly intercepted a car, took the other person's phone, and made a call to the company, asking them to send a new convoy. After making the call, Donald and the others drove back to the farmhouse and took Caliban and Dr. Rice. This time, Caliban didn't die, and instead of following the plot, he stole a few grenades and found a few shields. When Donald and the others returned to the main road again, Dr. Rice's face turned dark and he said, "Caliban, sense X-24 for me." Caliban closed his eyes and sensed, then shook his head, "They have already gone beyond a range of 20 miles. I can no longer sense their trace." Hearing this, Dr. Rice clenched his fist, "X-24, my latest research achievement, that damn guy. I swear, Steve Rogers, you will pay the price." New York. Due to Ultron's Sokovia incident, countless civilians were injured and killed, so the Avengers Alliance is currently facing criticism from the international community. Just like the other team members, Captain America has been staying in one of Tony's buildings recently and rarely goes out. It can be considered as temporarily cutting off contact with the outside world. He was originally overlooking New York when he suddenly sneezed. Then he felt a slight chill behind him and shivered. Falcon next to him said, "Looks like someone is cursing at you." Captain America smiled bitterly, "I feel like it's not just cursing, the other party also wants to kill me." Captain America sighed, "I never expected that the Sokovia incident would make someone want to kill me." Falcon remained silent. Captain America didn't know. The person who is targeting him is not because of the Sokovia incident, but because an invisible blame has been placed on his head. Trouble comes from above. Falcon spoke, "Captain America, be careful when you go out recently, so you don't end up in trouble." Captain America nodded, "I will be more careful recently." Donald looked at Dr. Les and said, "Doctor, we can't track down X-24 for now. What should we do next?" "I have already reported the situation regarding X-24 and asked the intelligence department to track it," Dr. Les replied. "So, Should we wait for the intelligence department's information and then go after X-24? Or should we deal with X-23 first? Donald asked. After hearing the other party's words, Dr. Les took a deep breath. He then said, "We don't know how long we'll have to wait for the intelligence department's information. Let's deal with X-23 first. In addition, report to the company immediately and have them investigate Steve Rogers." Donald nodded. Dr. Les said, "Let's go, continue heading north." "Isn't X-23 supposed to go to Eden?" Donald asked. "We'll go there to find them." Donald turned to the driver and said, "Let's go, head towards Eden." "Yes." The driver responded. Boom. The car raced towards the north, heading towards the border. At this moment, Shu Luo's motorcycle was speeding towards a coastal city in the east. The two sides were heading in completely different directions. The night was as dark as ink. On a road leading to the northern border, there was silence. Only the rumbling sound of a car broke the stillness of the world. But this lone rumble only made the silence of the world more apparent, as if the whole world had fallen into a deep sleep. The car's headlights shone, trying to fight against the loneliness of the night, but it was futile. The thick, unbreakable loneliness flowed in this endless night. In the car, the elderly Wolverine, covered in scars, was driving. His eyes were lifeless, devoid of even sorrow. He just stared blankly ahead at the darkness. In Wolverine's eyes at that moment, there was no glimmer of light. Because his last dear friend had also died. Beside him, in the passenger seat, was the bloodied X-23. Her eyes were still sharp, her face still stubborn, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. In fact, X-23 was technically Wolverine's daughter, as she was created using Wolverine's genes. X-23 looked at Wolverine and remained silent for a while. Then she turned her head to look at the darkness outside and said, "When you were fighting just now, I saw someone in the bushes." Wolverine didn't say anything. X-23 continued, "Before Charles died, I heard his voice in my head. He said there was someone outside, without hostility. He said that person might be the key to changing the fate of mutants." X-23 paused for a moment. "In the bushes, it seemed like I saw him. Because in his eyes, there was no hostility towards us, just calmness." Upon hearing X-23 mention Charles, Wolverine fell silent. After a long while, he asked, "Charles, did he tell you who that person is?" "Shu Luo." A name fell into the rumbling and silent night. As if silently falling into the roaring tide of destiny, Donald switched to the car sent by the company and rushed towards the border at high speed. In the end, they caught up with X-23 and the others before they crossed the border. Through a drone, they saw X-23 and the other mutant children walking through the forest. But Wolverine was not among them, because X-23 and the others were planning to cross the border and go to a sanctuary in Canada. And Wolverine had no intention of going, so when X-23 and the others left, they didn't wake up the sleeping Wolverine. Dr. Les saw X-23 and the others walking and narrowed his eyes. "Finally found them, X-23s." Donald looked at the recent information sent by the company. He looked at Dr. Les and said, "I just received information from the company. Captain America's whereabouts have disappeared recently. He completely disappeared from the public eye and completely concealed his whereabouts." Upon hearing Donald's words, Dr. Les let out a sigh. "It seems that the person who took X-24 is no longer on the run, it's Rogers. He has hidden his identity and tracking traces." Dr. Les gritted his teeth slightly. "Continue investigating Rogers' whereabouts. As soon as he shows up, we'll go find him." Donald nodded. "Okay." Dr. Les spoke up. "Let's start by killing those little ones." "Yes." Immediately, Donald and the hired team got out of the car and rushed towards the little wolf girl and the others. Holding guns and bullets, they attacked them. Seeing the little wolf girl and the others in imminent danger. At this moment, a temporarily revitalized beast rushed out from behind and charged towards the mercenaries. Its movements were swift, like an arrow leaving the bow. Its steel claws were hard, easily piercing through the mercenaries' bulletproof vests and helmets. Soon enough, those mercenaries fell down. Wolverine, covered in blood, caught up with the little wolf girl and the others, leading them towards the northern border. This was Wolverine injected with mutant serum. When leaving, the mutant child left a bottle of green mutant serum for Wolverine. It temporarily stimulated Wolverine's vitality, allowing him to save the little wolf girl and the others in time. This time, because of Shu Luo's intervention, the clone did not enter this chase, so Wolverine did not encounter a formidable opponent he couldn't defeat. Therefore, this time, the old Wolverine did not die. He survived and took the little wolf girl and the others to a sanctuary in Canada. Before entering the tunnel at the border, Wolverine looked back at the world behind him. He looked at his own hands, with a soft sound. Adamantium claws pierced out. He murmured, "Perhaps I should continue to live, and maybe it's time to let go of these claws." After saying that, he turned around and led the little wolf girl and the other mutant children into the tunnel, stepping into an unknown future. In the car behind, Dr. Les watched Wolverine and the others leave, letting out a painful roar. He could have taken down these guys because he possessed the powerful weapon X-24. But unexpectedly, X-24 was intercepted halfway. Damn it. It's all because of Rogers. Amidst the roar, there was deep-seated hatred that was etched into his heart. On the road, a car was speeding. A motorcycle was hanging on top of the car. The driver of the car was a man wearing a mask, his black eyes calm and steady. This person was Shu Luo. He had stolen a gang member's car on the way. There was no choice, riding a motorcycle with a bound person was too conspicuous. On his phone's browser, he was searching for the mastermind behind the Essex Group. After the search was complete, he looked at the browser. However, the search failed. He did not find out who the Essex Group really is from the internet. After all, he was still curious about the origin of this Essex Group. It only showed that this business giant is a biotech conglomerate with a global reach in everyday food and deep involvement in the field of genetically modified organisms. In the movie, it seems that the origin of the Essex Group was not revealed either. The only thing Shu Luo knew was Dr. Lee's. His father, Dr. Del Lees, was in charge of the X-Weapon program and was later killed by the escaped Wolverine. In the end, Dr. Lees followed in his father's footsteps and joined the Essex Group, reopening the X-Weapon program to exterminate all mutants and create new mutant weapons. This is definitely not something Lees could plan. After all, Lees is just a researcher with slightly better abilities. In Shu Luo's opinion, there must be a mastermind behind this extermination plan. He created the massive Essex Group and then used it to control global food security, silently strangling mutants. At the same time, while exterminating mutants, he also didn't forget to create mutant weapons. This person behind the scenes is definitely not an ordinary person. He must have strong ambitions and abilities. By taking away X-24 this time, he has already made enemies with the Essex Group. Although it hasn't been exposed yet, it may be exposed one day. At that time, he may face retaliation from the Essex Group. So Shu Luo wanted to understand this company first. To understand the existence behind it. But in the end, he didn't find what he wanted. Shu Luo drove the car and murmured, "So, who is behind Essex?" Bang. The car passed through a pothole, causing the whole car to shake. In the trunk, there was a loud noise, and the things inside were also hit. Shu Luo didn't care and said, "It's nothing, just a pothole." Inside the trunk, impotent anger brewed in the trunk. Shu Luo looked at the road ahead. Now Shu Luo is heading to New York. The reason for going to New York is that there are more resources and it is more suitable for his research. Next, he will first obtain a fake identity in New York. Believing that in a bustling and sinful city like New York, this kind of thing should be relatively easy to obtain. Without a fake identity, many things he does will be more troublesome, such as renting a house and so on. In addition, he also needs to obtain some equipment and a house in order to further his research. After all, without the necessary resources, he can't achieve much. Once these are settled, he can start researching the self-healing factor of clones. Buzz. Shu Luo stepped on the accelerator. The car rushed forward, heading towards a farther place. Essex Group headquarters. Deep underground, in the depths of a laboratory, it was dim and damp. In that darkness, there was a faint figure, outside the laboratory. Some executives of the company stood, looking extremely respectful, watching the depths of the laboratory. In the depths of darkness, a cold voice sounded, "The pursuit failed, and you lost X-24. You guys are really useless." A hand wearing black gloves reached out, raising the index finger. "Find me Steve Rogers and retrieve the company's assets." "Yes." The executives below hurriedly responded. Immediately after, the executives left this place. The outskirts of New York. Shu Luo looked at his phone. Not long ago, he sent an email to Klaus. He wanted to borrow some money from Klaus, expressing his desire to purchase some equipment and rent a house. After all, Shu Luo didn't have much money at the moment. If he wanted to buy equipment or rent a house, he would need a considerable amount of money. So he wanted to borrow some money from Klaus and pay it back in the future. In addition, he also asked Klaus about the place to obtain a fake identity in New York. After all, Shu Luo believed that Klaus should be familiar with this kind of situation. And now, he received an email from Klaus. "Brother, I also have a safe house in New York. The address is Hell's Kitchen, 314 Lanning Avenue. You can go there directly. It has a complete set of research equipment and abundant resources. The safe in the house contains 20 million USD. You can use the equipment inside the house as you please. As for the money in the safe, consider it as a loan from me, an investment in you. When you arrive, send me an email, and I will give you a real-time verification code. As for the issue of obtaining a fake identity that you mentioned, you've asked the right person. As someone who frequently deals with high-end goods, I always have several fake identities on me. You can go to 23 Black Duck Street in Queens. It's a place specifically for obtaining fake identities. It costs 50,000 USD for one fake identity, the kind that is indistinguishable from the real one, and it will be entered into the authorities' system. Looking at the email information on his phone, Shu Luo murmured, "Thank you, Klaus. You've directly solved the problem of the house and equipment for me. Don't worry, I will pay you back the money soon." Saying that, he looked at his phone. There was a piece of news on it. About Osborne Corporation. A few days ago. Due to the failure of Norman Osborne's new product research and the loss of military support, the stock plummeted instantly. And Norman Osborne was directly kicked out of the company by the board of directors due to his decision-making mistakes, causing Norman Osborne to lose his own company. Norman Osborne is the future Green Goblin. Or maybe he already is. Shu Luo didn't know. He didn't care about Osborne. He cared about Osborne Corporation. With Osborne Corporation's stock hitting rock bottom, it was a good opportunity to buy low. Although Osborne Corporation's market value was not good, its original capital was still very strong. It possessed extremely advanced biological equipment and a large amount of biological knowledge and patents. In addition, Osborne Corporation also possessed the extraordinary spider that bit Peter Parker. That was the origin of Peter Parker's journey to becoming a superhero. It contains rich biological knowledge. Originally, the extraordinary spider was part of his plan. After all, after obtaining the ability to survive, a stronger self-defense ability is needed. Spider ability is such an ability, the easiest to obtain, and has great potential. If fully developed, it will have terrifying power on the scale of hundreds of tons. It is almost comparable to the early Hulk and Abomination. As long as the spider ability is developed to the extreme, it will be enough for him to deal with many things. If he can acquire Osborne, he will save a lot of work, without the need to steal the extraordinary spider or start from scratch with research, and so on. Therefore, Shu Luo is ready to bottom out Osborne's company, and when it is on the verge of bankruptcy, at the lowest price, he will take it over. Coincidentally, Clow gave him a very generous amount of money. Moreover, as long as he acquires Osborne's company, he can easily revive Osborne by slightly improving some of Osborne's technology or the technology in his hands. This will allow him to receive generous rewards. By then, he can repay the debt he borrowed from Clow. But next, he needs to get a fake identity first, otherwise it will be difficult to proceed. After all, his original identity is unusable, but in modern society, many things require an identity, otherwise it's not easy to handle. The money he has on him is just enough to get a fake identity. Thinking of this, he put his phone back in his pocket and drove towards the Queens area of New York. During the rush, a motorcycle came from the front. A man glanced at Shu Luo. Shu Luo also glanced at the other party. Then the two vehicles passed each other. Shu Luo's mind flashed the other person's face and murmured, "Baron Zemo. New York is really small. Just wandering around, you can meet someone with a head and a face. Baron Zemo. His family died in the Sokovia incident, so he resented the members of the Avengers Alliance. He eventually planned a series of events, triggering the civil war within the Avengers Alliance, hoping to make the members of the Avengers Alliance kill each other. Shu Luo really didn't expect. Just arrived in New York, and met such a person. He looked at himself in the mirror, with a mask and sunglasses, his face mostly covered. He understood that he needed to learn some makeup techniques, otherwise, always covering his face would not be a solution. Whoosh. The car headed towards New York, towards this bustling and contradictory city filled with a lot of evil. Soon, he arrived at the place to get a fake identity. It was in an alley, a relatively secluded place. There were no signs outside, and behind the door was a curtain. Pushing aside the curtain and entering, he saw the situation inside. The space inside was narrow and messy. In the corner, there was a workbench. There were several computers on the workbench. A man with messy hair was sitting behind it, typing on the keyboard. "What do you want?" The man didn't look up. Shu Luo spoke, 50,000, a new identity. "Oh, it seems like you were introduced by someone you know. You're quite familiar with this place." The man glanced at Shu Luo. "Give money, take a photo, get an identity." The man sniffed. Shu Luo took out a stack of money from his backpack and placed it on the table. "Count it." The man put the money into a counting machine. Clatter clatter. Soon the money was counted. After receiving the money, the man started to act, taking photos of Shu Luo while talking. The identities I provide here are basically foolproof. Because the identity information here is real. Just that these identity information belongs to missing persons. I will turn their information into yours, modify the photos in their systems, and let you continue to live under their identities. As long as you don't do anything stupid, there shouldn't be any problems. After taking the photo, the other person started working at lightning speed. The keyboard clacked and clattered. In no time at all, a brand new ID card was placed in Shu Luo's hand. The profile picture looked about 70 to 80% similar to Shu Luo. The speed was beyond Shu Luo's imagination. You're quite efficient. Of course, efficiency is life to me. Holding the new ID, Shu Luo said, "From now on, I am Li Luo." With this new identity, everything he did would be more convenient. He could even go and take down Osborne Corporation with this identity. The other person waved his hand and said, "Goodbye, brother." With the item in hand, Shu Luo left. He needed to go to the safe house and study the self-healing factor. Outside on the street, a car was parked with a motorcycle tied on top. 2 or 3 men were gathered around the car. One of them spoke, "This car looks really good, and there's a decent-looking motorcycle on top. If we take this car, we can get a good amount of money." "Alright, I'll unlock this door." Saying that, one person took out a specialized lockpicking tool and prepared to open it. Just at that moment, a calm and powerful voice sounded from them, "That's my car." The group turned their heads. They saw a man wearing sunglasses. Seeing the owner had arrived, the thieves not only didn't panic, but even took out weapons, either iron rods or daggers. The thief with the iron rod said, "You brat, get lost if you know what's good for you. Otherwise, I'll show you." Seeing this, Shu Luo's mouth twitched slightly. No wonder it's New York, the city of sin, the legendary Gotham City. The people here are truly straightforward. When stealing a car doesn't work, they resort to direct robbery, fully understanding the concept of escalating crimes. He took a step forward, his expression unchanged, calmly saying, "Get lost." Hearing this, the thieves' faces instantly turned dark. "Are you looking to die?" Saying that, they charged towards Shu Luo. Just at that moment, a graceful figure rushed out. Golden hair fluttered, with a touch of pink at the tips. Bang, bang, bang. Several powerful kicks were unleashed. Immediately, the thieves were sent flying, letting out cries of pain. A light hum came. "You guys are truly seeking death, robbing in broad daylight." The thieves quickly got up and ran away. The person who made the move turned around. It was a slender and elegant girl. She had a delicate appearance, with big, bright eyes, and carried a guitar on her back. She smiled, revealing 2 dimples. "Are you all right, friend?" Shu Luo had intended to take action, but unexpectedly someone beat him to it. This was the first time someone had helped him. It made him feel slightly uncomfortable. He nodded and said, "I'm fine, thank you for your help." The girl's smile became even brighter. "It's nothing, I enjoy helping others. Goodbye, friend. I wish you a pleasant afternoon in the Queen's district." With that, she adjusted the strap of her guitar and prepared to leave gracefully. Looking at the girl's hair color, Shu Luo was reminded of a character from Marvel. But he wasn't sure if it was the same person. After all, in theory, there shouldn't be such a character in the Marvel universe, but considering that this world has integrated mutants, it's possible that character could be integrated as well. So he casually asked, "Since you helped me, can I ask for your name?" The girl blinked at him. "Gwen." After saying that, she left. Like the wind, coming and going lightly. Hearing this name, and comparing it to the girl's hair color, Shu Luo basically guessed the girl's identity. Ghost Spider, Gwen. Shu Luo got into his car, started the engine, and drove away. He murmured, "I didn't expect it to be Ghost Spider Gwen. I just don't know if she has become Ghost Spider now." After all, from what he saw of Gwen's movements just now, they were at the speed and strength of an ordinary person. So he didn't know if she had become Ghost Spider. He turned the steering wheel, made a turn, and continued driving towards his destination. He looked at the scenery outside the window and murmured, "Sure enough, it's New York. I haven't been here for half a day and I've already encountered 2 well-known figures. Indeed, coming here was the right choice. I can find what I want faster here." In a corner, those 3 car thieves emerged. Watching Shu Luo's car drive away, one of them squinted and said, "Such a good car, this guy must be an easy target." Another person spoke, "Definitely an easy target, we can't miss this opportunity. If it wasn't for that damn woman just now, we might have succeeded." That damn woman. Now this fat sheep got away. A voice interrupted. Who said that? The thin man who had taken out professional lockpicking tools took out his phone. He tapped a few times, and a GPS system popped up. The other two widened their eyes. What's this? The thin man smiled proudly. GPS system. I had placed a tracking button on the bottom of that car from the beginning. So, this guy can't escape from us. I used to work at Stark Industries. Although I was fired for theft, I still have my abilities. The other two chuckled. Meeting us, this guy can only consider himself unlucky. Let's go. Follow him and see where this guy lives. They were about to get in the car and leave. When they saw two people approaching, one of them looked dejected. Immediately, the other person made a sarcastic remark. Oh, isn't this the great thief Scott? How come you're out of prison? And isn't this Lewis next to you? How come you're hanging out with Scott again? Aren't you afraid both of you will end up back inside? Perhaps thieves in the same profession are enemies, so the three of them mocked Scott and Lewis, who were also thieves. Scott, with a dejected look, clenched his fist in response to the other party's mockery. But he didn't dare to act because he knew that the three people in front of him were gang members, and they were crazy. If he provoked them, it wouldn't end well. He had only recently been released from prison and couldn't afford to cause trouble. Beside him, Lewis quickly pulled his friend away and whispered, "Don't bother with them, it's not worth it." If Shu Luo were here, he would be able to recognize him. The dejected person is none other than the future Ant-Man. The group of car thieves continued to mock the two as they walked away. After doing all this, the car thieves felt much better, and the frustration from Gwen's scolding had dissipated. Let's go. Let's not bother with this waste. Let's go find that unlucky guy. Yes, finding the fat sheep is more important. I have a good feeling about this. We're going to make a big profit this time. Hearing this, the group of people all showed satisfied smiles. They immediately hailed a taxi and followed the GPS to their destination. Shortly after, Shu Luo arrived at his destination. He arrived at the location of Claw in New York. It was an independent small villa with a fence around it and a small courtyard inside. Looking at the small villa in front of him, Shu Luo couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect this safe house to be so high profile. A mansion in the bustling city. This is a bit too conspicuous. Shu Luo clicked his tongue in amazement. He got out of the car and approached the door, entering the temporary password sent by Claw into the electronic lock. Verification successful. Initiating iris data collection, unlocking owner mode. You will have free access to any area of this house in the future. Detecting that you have a car, opening the gate. Rows of words appeared on the electronic screen. The gate opened immediately. Shu Luo drove in and parked the car in the parking space. After doing all this, he excitedly opened the trunk. After all, the research was finally about to begin. The clone lay motionless like a stone, only its eyes could move. The clone stared at Shu Luo intently. Seeing Shu Luo's eager gaze, the clone X-24 swallowed nervously, feeling extremely uneasy. Shu Luo comforted, "Don't be nervous, it's just a small experiment." After saying that, Shu Luo lifted the clone and walked towards the house. Claw had already sent him the layout of the house, so he walked into the basement with ease. The basement was a tool room, equipped with tools and equipment similar to another safe house, quite complete. Shu Luo placed the clone on the steel experimental table. Using magnetic handcuffs, he firmly shackled the clone to the table. 4 magnetic handcuffs, locked onto the steel. Even if the clone's strength far exceeded that of an ordinary person, it couldn't break free. This way, even if the neurotoxin runs out, I don't have to worry about you running away. Shu Luo nodded in satisfaction. The clone on the experimental table became increasingly terrified. Shu Luo took out a sharp surgical knife from the side. Let's test your recovery ability first. Saying that, he made a cut towards the clone. The 3 car thieves finally arrived at their destination. Looking at the villa in front of them, the group of them smiled knowingly. Indeed, it's a big fat sheep, after colliding with 3 car thieves. Scott and Lewis left in silence. They walked on the street, their faces not looking good. Scott clenched his fist. Those damn guys. I really want to punch them. Lewis smiled bitterly. The two of us can't win against them. After all, they are gang members who are used to fighting. And it seems like they have some connection with the Hand, the secretive and powerful Japanese organization. It's not something we, powerless small-time crooks, can afford to provoke. Speaking of this, Lewis sighed. Scott was taken aback. The Hand? Are you talking about that secretive and powerful Japanese organization in Hell's Kitchen? Lewis nodded. Hearing this, Scott smiled bitterly. Whether it's fighting alone or comparing power, we can't compare to them. Lewis continued. I can see that you don't look good. What's wrong? Upon hearing this, Scott's expression became gloomy. I got fired because of my criminal record. My boss fired me. Hearing this, Lewis patted Scott's shoulder and sighed. Then he said, then think about our situation again. We still need to make money, don't we? Scott replied in a hoarse voice, I'll think about it. He looked around. Tall buildings reflected the bright sunlight, filled with the vibrancy of New York. But all of this seemed unrelated to him, Scott. He was just a stain in this dreamlike and bustling city. On the other side, in the basement of a safe house, Shu Luo was conducting research on the clone. Wearing white surgical gloves, he cut open the clone's body, testing the healing process at different depths. At the same time, he recorded the data on the computer next to him. The keyboard was constantly being tapped. Cutting the epidermis only takes 15 seconds to heal. Cutting the deltoid muscle only takes 60 seconds to heal. Cutting the anterior tibial muscle only takes 55 seconds to heal. Shu Luo continued to experiment and constantly entered data on the keyboard. I still have to personally tap the keyboard and enter data. The equipment here is not very intelligent. If it were Iron Man's set of equipment, with artificial intelligence assistance, the AI would automatically record, and most of the work could be completed through conversation. That would be true efficiency. Shu Luo sighed, my efficiency is still too low. It seems that I need to upgrade my related equipment in the future. But that has to wait until I acquire Osborn's company. After all, only by acquiring Osborn can I have enough resources to upgrade the equipment. While muttering to himself, Shu Luo continued to work. On the operating table, the clone's body was covered in bloodstains, with some wounds still healing, grotesque and terrifying with red flesh protruding. His forehead was covered in sweat, his lips constantly trembling, and his body still somewhat stiff. He looked at Shu Luo with fear in his eyes. What he was most worried about was ending up in an irreparable state. And now, this situation had actually happened. The clone looked at the man in front of him, fear filling his eyes, especially when he saw him performing surgery and talking to himself. That was what scared the clone the most. Shu Luo glanced at the clone. This neurotoxin is even better than I imagined. It's been so long, and it still works. He continued, sorry, when one person is constantly doing research, they can't always be tense. So occasionally, they need to say something to relax their nerves. Although it may look terrifying, like a pervert. But don't worry, I am mentally stable, everything is under control, you don't need to be afraid. Listening to Shu Luo's words, the clone became even more fearful. His lips trembled even more intensely. Shu Luo looked at the wounds on the clone's body and said, your self-healing ability is not good. Next, I will start analyzing your genes. His eyes flickered with a hint of excitement. Once I decipher your genome, I will be able to obtain your ability. He dropped a drop of the clone's blood onto an electron microscope. Immediately, a double helix structure appeared before his eyes. It was 2 strands of deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, coiling around a common central axis, forming a double helix structure, which is the DNA inside the body. DNA, also known as deoxyribonucleic acid, is a complex organic compound with a molecular structure. It is a long polymer composed of repeating nucleotide units, with a width of 2.2 to 2.6 nanometers in each nucleotide monomer measuring 0.33 nanometers in length. It exists as a component of chromosomes in the cell nucleus. Its function is to store genetic information. This genetic information is the source of the mutant's powerful abilities. He then zoomed in, and the double helix DNA appeared in a larger perspective, revealing a more high-level structure. It was a superstructure of DNA formed by further twisting, coiling, and folding of the double helix. Helical, coiled, folded, forming a complex superhelix. Shu Luo understood. It is this high-level structure that influences the function of DNA and makes mutants different. Deciphering such a large genome is giving me a headache. Shu Luo felt a slight headache. After all, the genes inside the body are extremely vast. He couldn't help but think of Essex Corporation. Since Essex Corporation can create new mutants, they must have very mature genetic technology. If I can get it, I can save a lot of effort. Unfortunately, I can't get it now. I can only do it myself, starting from scratch. Shu Luo sighed. Also, to analyze these genomes, I need some test subjects to observe the effects and analyze their functions. Later, I will go to the market and buy some test subjects. Shu Luo said as he began to analyze and record the genome in front of him. Outside the house, 3 car thieves were standing at the gate. One of them, who had worked at Stark Industries, took out a computer and connected it to the gate's system. It can be said that he truly lived up to his reputation of having skills, having worked at Stark Industries. Soon, with the car thieves tapping, creak, the gate opened. The 3 of them were extremely excited. We did it. Let's go. Let's go in and make a fortune. Speaking of this, several thieves wearing hoods and masks immediately entered the courtyard. They were carrying wrenches, daggers, and other tools for self-defense. Even the thin man who opened the door had his hand on his waist, where there was a gun. As they entered, the thieves saw a car parked in the courtyard. Seeing this, the thin man chuckled softly, "When we leave, we can take this car with us. It's a perfect getaway vehicle. After we escape, we can even sell it, killing 2 birds with 1 stone." The other 2 also chuckled softly. "With this car, we can take away more things. Yes, we can fleece this fat sheep for more wool." The thin man spoke, "Let's be careful not to alert the fat sheep. If he calls the police, our plan could be ruined." His companion nodded, "You're right." They looked inside. A 3-story exquisite small building stood there, with intricate carvings and beautiful paintings. "Wow, this house is really beautiful. Damn, these rich people live so comfortably. I can't bear not to fleece this fat sheep properly, F***K. It's so unfair. If I encounter that fat sheep, I must beat him up. Why does he get to live in such a nice house?" The few of them muttered enviously and jealously. They sneaked towards the house. Because the thin man had previously tampered with the security system when he broke in, they didn't encounter any alarms along the way. Using specialized lockpicking tools, the thin man opened the door and walked in. As they entered, everyone's eyes sharpened. The furniture and decorations inside were of the highest quality. Grand and majestic, exuding a classical beauty that was very pleasing to the eye. All the furniture was top-notch. "Wow, this sofa is definitely custom-made by a top Italian workshop. So comfortable." The thin man gently stroked the genuine leather of the sofa, showing a sense of enjoyment. Another person touched the carpet. "This carpet is definitely handmade, and it's very well made. It looks expensive at first glance. A whole wall of murals, a depiction of heaven. These angels are so lifelike and realistic, it's art." Looking at these things, the few of them had stars in their eyes. "We hit the jackpot. We really hit the jackpot this time. This guy is so rich, we're going to make a fortune." They circled around the entire room, filled with excitement. Everything in this house, from the furniture to the decorations, exuded a sense of luxury. They also went upstairs, where the luxury continued. The few of them felt like they had hit the jackpot. But soon, their brows furrowed. One thief gritted his teeth, "We've been searching for so long, and I haven't seen a single bit of cash or treasure, just these expensive furniture and decorations." Another person said, "There's no cash or gold. Are we supposed to steal these furniture? These furniture are bulky, it's difficult to steal them." He clenched his fist. "And, after going around in circles, we haven't seen the fat sheep's figure. Where is he? Did he go out?" The thin man looked at the surroundings, also furrowing his brow tightly. "This house is so luxurious, there must be some money here. This doesn't make sense. Normally, in such a wealthy house, there would be hundreds of thousands, if not more, but there isn't even a safe. It's abnormal. No, there must be a safe here, there's money." The thin man looked around, confident in his statement. "But we searched the entire house and didn't find anything," said the companion. "There is only one possibility then. There must be a hidden room here, and the things are hidden inside the hidden room." The thin man looked around, squinting his eyes slightly. "Once we find the hidden room, we will find the money." Upon hearing this, the people around them all brightened up. "Let's search." Immediately, a group of people started searching the room. Soon enough, the thin man found traces of the entrance to the hidden room. He tapped on a wall and found that the sound was slightly clearer than the others, instantly brightening his eyes. "I found it. The sound here is clearer, which means this is not a solid wall. Behind this wall, there must be something hidden. The switch should be nearby." The other 2 quickly ran over to help. Soon enough, one of the companions felt an inconspicuous groove. He pressed it, and a display screen appeared. The thin man quickly connected to it and started cracking the code. After a few tens of seconds, a creaking sound was heard. The wall opened up. A deep spiral passage leading underground was revealed. Seeing this scene, the 3 of them trembled with excitement. The thin man clenched his fist. "Finally found it. The safe, the cash, and the jewelry must be down here." The companion next to him's voice trembled. "We're definitely going big with this." Another companion interjected, "Since we didn't see that fat sheep here, could he be down here?" A coldness flashed in the companion's eyes. "If he's down here, I don't mind sending him off after taking the things. In such a hidden place, no one would discover a dead body inside." He smirked as he said this. The thin man said, "If we encounter that kid, we must eliminate him. After all, he has seen us before. So he might recognize us. Leaving him behind would leave us with trouble." "You're right. This hidden room down here is so concealed that even if he's gone, it would be difficult for anyone to find it. Let's go. After saying that, the three of them walked towards the deep spiral staircase, their eyes filled with anticipation and excitement. The spiral staircase had no bright light, only some dim warm light, making the corridor even darker. The dim environment couldn't conceal the excitement in the hearts of the three. After reaching the bottom, they came across an iron door. There was a slight gap in the iron door. Light seeped through the gap, blending into the darkness outside. Besides the light seeping through, there was also a strange rhythmic sound of cutting meat, continuous and uninterrupted. In addition to that, there was the sound of a keyboard constantly ringing. Most importantly, there was a thick smell of blood wafting out. All of this had a hint of eeriness. The three of them froze in their tracks, involuntarily swallowing their saliva. At this moment, the intense excitement in their hearts has diminished, replaced by a hint of inexplicable unease. However, they are trying to explain it to themselves. Perhaps they are cutting raw beef inside, are slaughtering chickens or something, which is why there is a strong smell of blood in the sound of cutting meat. Even though they think this way, they still feel uneasy in their hearts. Looking at the bright gap ahead, they don't feel any sense of brightness, but rather a sense of gloominess. They exchange glances and see a trace of unease in each other's eyes. Especially with the strong smell of blood in the air and the sound of cutting meat in their ears. But then, a fierce light flashes in the eyes of the thin man, and he shouts, "There's a lot of money inside, even if the devil comes today. Don't even think about stopping me from making money." After saying that, he takes out a pistol, releases the safety, and loads it. Bang! He kicks open the door. Immediately after, the scene inside is revealed. Only a figure stands in front. In front of him is an operating table. Locked on the table is a bloody man, covered in sweat, with bloody wounds and exposed flesh. And the one responsible for all this is the fat sheep they mentioned. The other person carefully cuts open the man's biceps on the operating table, revealing the red and textured muscles. This scene stuns the three who entered, their pupils shrinking and their spines chilling. The man performing the surgery doesn't react much to the commotion caused by the three. He continues to cut carefully, only saying, "You finally came. You took so long to find the secret room, you've really worked hard." Hearing the other person's words, the three are instantly horrified. The other person already knew they were coming? The black-haired man continues, "I was actually planning to go out and buy some guinea pigs, but I didn't expect to have free door-to-door service. That's great." He nods in satisfaction. Hearing this, the hearts of the few people grow even colder. At this moment, they feel the gaze of the clone on the operating table. Looking over, they see a deep sense of sympathy and pity in the other person's eyes. In fact, when the three were cracking the door, Shu Luo had already received an alert. Through the surveillance outside, he immediately recognized the three as the car thieves from before. He didn't expect. These three were so persistent. They even tried to break into the house after failing to steal the car. So, Shu Luo was waiting for them to come down on their own, becoming his experimental subjects, just in time to verify the massive genome on the clone. The thin man sees this and shouts, "Who the hell do you think you are? You think you're more powerful than my bullets? I'll blow you up with one shot. F*K. As he says that, he raises the gun in his hand. Whoosh! A cold light flashes through the air. A scream rings out. The thin man's face contorts as he grips his right hand, which has a surgical knife stuck in it, blood dripping from it. The pistol falls to the ground, stained with blood. Shu Luo's speed is incredibly fast. The other two didn't even see Shu Luo's action clearly. They only saw the scene of their companion being pierced through the hand. A huge amount of fear filled the hearts of the two people. In an instant, the two turned around, wanting to escape from here. They completely ignored their companion who was kneeling on the ground, screaming in pain. Bang! The door closed automatically, blocking the two's way out. "No, no, no! Let us out! I want to get out!" The two pounded on the door, trying to break free. On the other side, Shu Luo also finished his actions and walked towards the three people. Seeing this, the two became even more frightened. Watching Shu Luo slowly approach, the fear in the hearts of the few people grew stronger and stronger, feeling increasingly suffocated. Seeing this, the thin man quickly reached for his gun with his left hand, trying to defend himself. Whoosh! Another cold light fell. The thin man covered his hand, which was pinned to the ground by a surgical knife, and screamed in pain again. In an extremely horrifying and oppressive situation, one person seemed to be on the verge of collapse, shouting angrily, "F*K. I'll fight you." He swung an iron plate wrench towards Shu Luo. Bang! Shu Luo kicked with his long legs, instantly knocking the opponent to the ground. He moved his figure. Soon, the last person also fell. After a moment, inside the spacious toolroom, 3 naked bodies were tied to 3 workbenches. Let us go. We know we were wrong. We were wrong. We were wrong. Spare us. We will never step foot in here again. Please, spare us. As long as you let us go, we will never come back. The few people cried bitterly, their eyes filled with fear. Shu Luo completely ignored them. Instead, he looked at a note that had just been taken from them, hidden in a secret compartment in a wallet. On it was written a date and address, a week later at the dock. Seeing this, Shu Luo spoke. What is this? Hiding something so discreetly, Shu Luo's intuition told him that this date and address were not simple. The thin man quickly spoke. I'll tell you the meaning of this information if you let me go. Hearing this, Shu Luo raised his hand, the sharp surgical knife emitting a cold light. Swoosh. The sharp blade easily cut through the muscles of the thin man's thigh. Ah! The thin man screamed in agony. Shu Luo calmly looked at the other 2. The 2 quickly spilled everything like beans. I'll tell you. We were working for the Hand Association. The Japanese gang is preparing to transport something valuable to New York for the Hand Association. This is the time and place. We were specifically assigned to keep watch outside and assess the situation. That's all the relevant information. Shu Luo looked at the note and continued to ask, what are they planning to transport? The 2 shook their heads quickly. We don't know about that. We were only responsible for keeping watch. The specific contents are not something we at our level would know. Only the higher-ups of the Hand Association probably know. Shu Luo glanced at the expressions and tone of the 2, and it didn't seem like they were lying. However, he didn't expect that these 3 people would be connected to the Hand Association. Shu Luo didn't know much about the Hand Association either, only that it was a large and extraordinary ninja organization, belonging to the antagonist group. This organization possesses the ability to resurrect dead men, and has a group of powerful ninjas, who seem to also possess ninjutsu skills. It seems to worship and sacrifice to an evil demon. As for what kind of demon it is and what abilities the demon has, Shu Luo doesn't know. The Hand Association is one of the top villainous organizations in Hell's Kitchen. He looked at the note in his hand again and murmured, the Hand Association? A precious item for the Hand Association. Since even the Hand Association considers it precious, it must be valuable. Shu Luo murmured to himself, his eyes gleaming. He was curious about this treasure. He looked at the specific time and location on the note. A week later, maybe I can go and take a look. After saying that, he threw the note into the trash can. Next, let's continue researching my own things. Let's experiment with the newly obtained genome on you guys and see what reactions there will be. Saying that, he picked up a surgical knife, carried specialized equipment, and walked towards the skinny one. Soon, sounds of horrifying screams and howls filled the workshop. Watching the inhumane treatment the skinny one was enduring, the other 2 were scared and crying, constantly screaming. Shu Luo felt a bit annoyed. He immediately covered the mouths of the 3. Compared to X-24, you guys are still too fragile. Your tolerance for pain is too weak. Shu Luo shook his head helplessly. But don't worry, I have a good sense of measure, I won't let you lose your lives. He looked at the 3 with a calm gaze. The 3 immediately screamed even louder, struggling with all their might, but their hands, feet, and waist were tightly locked to the operating table. As they struggled, their wrists and ankles were rubbed raw and bleeding. They looked at Shu Luo with bloodshot eyes, filled with fear and madness. At this moment, their only thought was death. To stay away from the devil in front of them. They had never longed for death like this before. Regarding this, Shu Luo's hand holding the surgical knife, syringe, and other instruments remained incredibly steady. Inside the entire room, sounds of screams coming from throats continued to echo. In stark contrast to the 3, was the clone next to them. Facing various tortures, it remained motionless, without any screams, only trembling lips and sweating profusely. This greatly shocked the 3. They couldn't imagine that there could be such a resolute person in the world. During their break, they looked at the clone, their eyes filled with disbelief. The clone looked back at them, still unmoving, only its lips twitching, its eyes filled with sorrow. It had something to say, but it was simply unable to move. The neurotoxin was too strong, and it hadn't recovered yet. In the following days, Shu Luo continued to study the clone, constantly reading cutting-edge biology knowledge and conducting experiments. With the help of 3 white mice, his progress was rapid. He constantly decrypts groups of genomes, continuously deciphering the high-level structure of DNA's superhelix. Gradually mastered the combination and arrangement of a portion of the genome. Shu Luo drew a knife across the skinny man, blood flowed out, revealing fresh red flesh. Under intense pain, the skinny man's throat emitted a painful and suppressed growl, veins bulging on his forehead, and sweat oozing from his body. Shu Luo didn't care about this, he was completely focused on observing the wound. Because this was his 23rd experiment today. Because he had deciphered a portion of the genome, he wanted to replicate a part of the self-healing ability of the clone, in order to enhance the self-healing ability. If the subsequent research is completed, he can fill in the remaining parts, thus achieving a complete inheritance of Wolverine's self-healing ability. After 22 adjustments before, all the results failed, and the healing ability did not achieve the desired effect. After the previous failures, Shu Luo was more confident in the 23rd experiment. He had great confidence that this time would be successful. When he saw the wound still bleeding, he sighed, it seems like a failure. Before he finished speaking, he saw the blood coagulating. Seeing this, Shu Luo's eyes brightened, it seems that the self-healing factor has formed, the self-healing ability has been enhanced, and platelets and fibrinogen have begun to accelerate the clotting process. Soon, the bleeding stopped and turned into a dark red scab. The scab quickly fell off, and the skin scars recovered. He tapped the keyboard and the screen displayed the microscopic activity inside the wound. In the depths of the cells, bursts of fluorescence appeared, followed by the rapid proliferation of tissue at the wound site and the rapid formation of granulation tissue, far exceeding that of an ordinary person. And that fluorescence in the depths of the cells was the successful generation of the self-healing factor. A trace of joy flashed in Shu Luo's eyes, finally succeeded, finally formed a certain self-healing factor. In a short period of time, the wound completely healed, although it can't match Wolverine's peak state, but it has far surpassed an ordinary person, reaching a non-human state. Even deep muscle injuries can recover relatively quickly. A 1 centimeter deep wound would take an ordinary person 1 to 2 weeks to heal, but with a partial replication of Wolverine's self-healing ability, it can heal in just a few minutes. Shu Luo clenched his fist. This healing ability is indeed very powerful. Even with a partial replication of Wolverine's self-healing ability, it is already astonishing. With this self-healing ability, I can consider myself to have a strong survival ability. A hint of joy flashed in his eyes. He immediately began typing on the keyboard, recording the experimental data from just now and reviewing and reflecting on the previous 23 experiments. At the moment when the skinny man's wound healed itself, the 3 car thieves were all shocked. They never expected that one of them would truly gain extraordinary power in this experiment. Even more unexpectedly, they would possess such a terrifying self-healing ability. The fact that the wound healed in such a short time was simply horrifying. They looked at the terrifying figure of the demon and their hearts were in turmoil. It was this person who created all this strangeness. The genius level of the other party exceeded their imagination. Looking at the young and handsome face, they couldn't believe that such a young person would possess such powerful scientific research abilities. It turns out that this guy is a true super genius. At the same time, their fear deepened. Facing such an exceptionally talented existence, they felt that they would probably never escape its clutches in their lifetime. Shu Luo seemed to be enveloped in infinite darkness. After typing the last word, Shu Luo twisted his neck. Next, I will replicate this ability on myself. Speaking of this, there was a hint of anticipation in his tone. The X-24 next to him watched the successful experiment. As he watched the wounds on the skinny person quickly heal, he was stunned. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He really didn't expect it. He was just an ordinary person before, but in the next moment, he had such a strong self-healing ability. He now possessed the same self-healing ability as him. Although he didn't understand the knowledge behind it, he still felt shocked. He looked at Shu Luo, his eyes filled with disbelief. At the same time, the disappearance of the neurotoxin in these days also allowed the clone to regain control of his body. But facing the magnetic handcuffs, he couldn't move at all. At the same time, facing the pain, he could no longer remain silent, and painful low growls came from his throat. This also brought a sense of comfort to the car thieves. Everyone is more or less the same. On Shu Luo's side, he didn't pay any attention to the feelings of the 4 people. He began to focus on replicating the core part of the experiment he had just conducted. Every movement of his was perfectly replicated. As if he were a precise machine. Mainly to ensure that there were no mistakes in the process. As time passed, the core part of the experiment was completely replicated onto his body. After a while, Shu Luo looked at his arm and said, "Next, it's time to test it." After saying that, he took out a surgical knife and made a cut. With a hissing sound, flesh was cut open and blood flowed out. The pain hit Shu Luo's nerves, he slightly frowned, and veins bulged on his forehead. But his gaze remained fixed on his own flesh and blood. The three car thieves next to him watched Shu Luo, who didn't make a sound, and their eyes widened. They swallowed their saliva and looked at each other, their pupils trembling slightly. To cut open one's own flesh and blood, under such intense pain, and not make a sound. They had personally experienced that pain, and it was unbearable. But they didn't expect Shu Luo to not make a sound at all. This level of willpower, this level of tolerance for pain, made the three car thieves feel fear. The person in front of them was not human at all. In fact, he was a devil wearing human skin. Shu Luo stared at the wound. After a while, he saw the blood begin to coagulate, and under the transmission electron microscope, he could clearly see the proliferating tissue starting to grow. The granulation tissue on both sides of the wound began to grow, intertwining and integrating into new flesh. A few minutes later, the wound on his arm had completely healed. Only some bloodstains remained. After gently wiping them away, everything was back to normal, as if the cut had never existed. Seeing this, Shu Luo's eyes were filled with joy. Finally, it's done. A powerful self-healing ability. Although it hasn't reached the level of a young Wolverine, this self-healing ability is already very strong. With this powerful self-healing ability, Shu Luo finally felt a bit safer. From now on, he would no longer be so fragile. If his injuries were slightly more severe, he could lose his life. Although he had previously injected the super soldier serum and his self-healing ability had been enhanced to some extent. But it still belonged to the realm of a normal person. If the injuries were too severe and important organs were affected, he would still die. Now, even in the case of serious injuries, even if important organs were affected, as long as he was given time, he could fully recover. He touched the healed area and nodded in satisfaction. Definitely. This is not enough. This is only a partial self-healing ability of Wolverine, it has not reached its peak. He still needs to continue working hard, he wants to become a complete Wolverine. Next, it's about continuing to work hard and overcome the entire genome of Wolverine. At the same time, he looked at the clone and muttered to himself, through the research during this period, I have also discovered. The adamantium inside the clone is constantly growing. That is the fusion of adamantium and bones, generating adamantium beta version, replacing the native bones. And these adamantium indeed constantly release toxins, continuously suppressing and destroying the generation of flesh and self-healing factors. However, at the moment, the suppression and destruction of the self-healing factors are not very obvious due to the short time. But over time, it will accumulate terrifying toxicity, ultimately completely suppressing the self-healing factors, causing the flesh to completely decay, and eventually leading to death. Wolverine aging to such an extent is strongly related to the toxicity of adamantium. Putting adamantium in the body is like placing a deadly poison. But for me, there is no problem, because I won't implant this thing into my body. At the same time, he looked at the records on the computer. Implanting adamantium into the body has both disadvantages and advantages. The advantage is that the indestructible adamantium can greatly protect the flesh of Wolverine's brain, making it harder for Wolverine to die. But this is a slow-acting lethal poison, and I won't do it. Just at this moment, his stomach growled. Shu Luo patted his stomach. It's time to feed you. Immediately, he tidied up his laboratory and went back upstairs. He started preparing his meal. Soon, a large amount of rice and high-quality protein were placed in front of Shu Luo. Now Shu Luo's physique is much stronger than before, and his demand for food is greater. The protein comes from chicken and beef. While eating, Shu Luo manipulated the computer and frantically bought stocks of Osborne Corporation. These days, apart from research, Shu Luo has been constantly acquiring stocks of Osborne Corporation. The value of Osborne Corporation's stocks is now extremely low, almost like waste paper. Many people think that Osborne is completely finished. The reason for this result is twofold. One reason is that Norman Osborn's previous research mistakes led to the loss of the military, the most important investor. Without the support of massive military funds, the market generally does not have a positive view of Osborne Corporation, leading to a sharp drop in stock prices. Another important reason is that some important shareholders of Osborne Corporation have mysteriously died in recent days. This makes people even more reluctant to hold these stocks. More selling of stocks has caused the already sluggish stock prices to further decrease. These days, Shu Luo efficiently visited the homes of some major shareholders and acquired their stocks. Now, he holds a 28% stake in Osborne Corporation, and is about to reach 31%, basically becoming the largest shareholder of Osborne Corporation. As long as he goes to the last major shareholder's house tonight and acquires the 20% of shares in their hands, and also acquires the scattered stocks in the stock market, his stake will reach 51%. Reaching 51% means absolute controlling interest, meaning absolute decision-making power. He will completely control Osborne Corporation. Having absolute power of speech, by then, he will obtain all the resources within Osborne. He will have the superior Spider-Man. In addition, he will be able to upgrade his own laboratory iteratively. Shu Luo kept tapping on the keyboard, collecting scattered stocks in the stock market. He frowned slightly. There are still people constantly competing with me for the scattered stocks. At this time, there are still people buying in large quantities. Is it the Green Goblin? Shu Luo narrowed his eyes. No matter who you are, you can't win against me. As long as I get that 20% of the shares tonight, even if I can't completely control it, I will be the largest shareholder. Osborne Corporation is mine. Shu Luo's voice was calm and powerful. A tall building built in the last century, carrying a hint of historical weight. One of the floors, exquisitely decorated. Inside the spacious study, a middle-aged man sits at the desk, looking at the computer in front of him. On it is a stock trading interface. You can see that stock transactions are being completed, but it's not him who is doing it, it's someone else. The stocks being traded are the stocks of Osborne Corporation. The middle-aged man just sits there, watching others acquire a large number of stocks. He is also buying, but he doesn't have that much money, so he can only watch others acquire more stocks. The middle-aged man is Norman Osborn. He really has no money left. After all, over the years, he has put all his efforts into the production of a serum for human enhancement. The entire company has been continuously investing in this project. As a result, the company has not been profitable. It mainly relies on funding from the military to sustain itself. This is also the reason why the board of directors is dissatisfied with Osborn himself. They blame him for putting all the resources into a bottomless pit, causing the company to have no profits. This is also the reason why the project failed in the end, and after the military withdrew its funding, the board of directors kicked Osborn out. The company is not profitable, so Osborn himself has not had any income for these years, and he doesn't have much savings. As for expenses, they are mostly reimbursed by the company. Now, Osborn wants to regain control of the company, so he is constantly collecting stocks. Collecting scattered stocks in the stock market. Originally, he thought that no one would compete with him for the stocks of Osborne Corporation. After all, Osborne Corporation has no prospects now. But he didn't expect it. Recently, there has been someone in the market who is crazily acquiring stocks in the stock market, with much more capital than him. This scene drives Osborn crazy and angry. Seeing this scene, Osborn's eyes burn with anger, his face twisted. Damn it! Who is it? Constantly snatching the stocks in the market. During this period, this mysterious person has been constantly snatching Osborne's stocks in the market, acquiring them like crazy. He actually wants to take all of Osborne's shares into his hands. Does this guy want to take my company away? He raises his fist and smashes it against the iron cup beside him. Bang! The iron cup is unexpectedly flattened by him. Osborn grits his teeth and says, Osborne Corporation is mine. No one can take it away. Whoever wants to take my company away, I will kill him. At this moment, a struggle appears on Osborn's face. No, I can't kill. Killing is wrong. You can't control my body to kill. Osborn tightly clenches his fist, trembling all over, seemingly trying to control himself with all his might. But in the next moment, Osborn reveals a sinister smile. No, you want to kill. All those who try to take your company away are your enemies. Unforgivable enemies. These days, I have already killed several major shareholders and reclaimed a large number of shares. Aren't you happy? Osborn then changes his face, struggling. If I want to take back the company, I won't do such despicable things. I will use my abilities to regain the company. As long as I research more things, the military will definitely come back. The struggle disappears, Osborn's face twists into a grimace, and he sneers. You alone will never be able to take back the company. Only with my blessing can you get what you want. We are one, you shouldn't resist me. Immediately, Osborn looks at the stock trading interface on the computer. His face is terrifyingly twisted. No matter who you are, I will definitely find you. I will tear you into 1,000 pieces. I will make you realize that there is only a dead end when you try to snatch something from me, Norman Osborn. At this point, Osborn clenched his fist, his eyes filled with cold light. He then looked to the side. A piece of paper lay calmly on the desk. The paper had an address written on it. Seeing this, Osborn sneered, no matter who you are, no matter how you struggle, you cannot take my company from me. As long as I get the remaining 20% of the shares from the last major shareholder tonight, I will be the largest shareholder of the company. I will have the greatest say, and you are just a jumping joker. He stood up, walked towards the bookshelf on the side. Gently pressed a certain book. With a bang. The bookshelf opened, revealing a secret room. Inside, a set of green battlesuit hung. Next to it, there was a silver skateboard with a fierce appearance. Seeing this, Osborne grinned, and this is the capital for me to take back the company. That jumping joker hiding in the dark, when I find you, you will know how ridiculous you are. A sinister laughter echoed in the study. Safe house. Shu Luo continued to buy stocks on the market. At this time, an anonymous email was sent. After opening it, it was from Klaus. During this time, Klaus would occasionally inquire about his situation and ask if he needed help. In addition, Elizabeth would also inquire about him. This time, Klaus sent an email. Besides the usual inquiries about his situation, he also talked about his own situation. Almost a month has passed. Hydra has greatly reduced their search efforts for Klaus because they haven't found any clues. And little Yi has been trapped in the deep mountains every day, feeling uncomfortable. So Klaus and little Yi disguised themselves and went to a nearby amusement park to have some fun. Little Yi had a great time. After that, there were some greetings from little Yi, indicating that she missed him a little. Looking at Klaus's email, Shu Luo's mouth curled up, and he felt a little happier. He immediately replied, saying that everything was fine on his side. After finishing the reply, Shu Luo looked at his account. The original balance of 20 million USD was almost depleted. Although Osborne's company's stocks were almost worthless, a camel is still bigger than a horse, and the stocks he bought had almost exhausted all his money. So, he currently has no cash to acquire the remaining 20% of the shares from the last major shareholder. But he must obtain the last 20% of the shares in order to have the greatest say in the company. Therefore, he needs something to help him obtain these shares. He looked up in the direction of Osborne's company. He really has no money left, but that doesn't mean he can't get the shares from the last major shareholder. He can get the shares from the last shareholder by painting a realistic pie, a practical pie. As for what kind of pie it is, that would be him reviving Osborne Corporation and turning losses into profits. Then, he can use a portion of the profits as the purchase fee for a 20% stake. Using future money to buy current shares, it's basically a fantasy. In general, people wouldn't agree to it, but now is not a normal situation. After all, for the major shareholder, the shares in his hands are actually a hot potato. Their value has plummeted. Most importantly, holding onto these shares poses a life-threatening danger. So the major shareholder definitely wants to get rid of these shares. But in this situation, there's basically no one willing to take over these shares. His appearance at the moment is a lifeline. As long as he can further convince the other party that his pie can be exchanged, then the major shareholder has no reason not to sell. Speaking of which, he has to thank the person who made the situation so chaotic. If it weren't for that person, he definitely wouldn't be able to get so many shares with his own money. Definitely. To succeed, he also needs the other party to believe that he can exchange this pie. To believe that he can turn the company's losses into profits. So he needs a technology that can turn the company's losses into profits. After the other party sees it, they will willingly eat his pie. However, the technologies he currently has are not easy to present. Either they are from Hydra, which would cause trouble, or they have distinct personal characteristics, which would easily lead others to associate them with him. Or they are simply not suitable for presentation, more important. So, he has set his sights on the outside world. Just right. He hasn't been idle these days and has done some investigation. In Osborne Corporation, there is a technology that can be brought to the market with some improvements. That is Kurt Connor's plasma technology. Kurt, who later became the Lizard Doctor, one of Spider-Man's opponents. During the Vietnam War, he was recruited and sent to the front lines to perform surgery on wounded soldiers. One day, the base was attacked by the enemy, and Connors suffered irreparable damage to his right hand in a big explosion. In order to save his life, he chose amputation and was sent back to the United States for recovery. To grow his right hand back and become a whole person again, Kurt began a long research career. He desperately studied the regenerative systems of reptiles and various aspects of reptile biology. During this time, Kurt's research finally yielded results. He developed a plasma extracted from reptile DNA. He tested it on a lame rabbit and it had great effects. According to Shu Luo's estimation, Kurt should have completed the full development of the plasma in these 2 days. To be able to completely grow new legs for a crippled rabbit. And this complete plasma will allow Kurt to grow new hands. However, with this comes powerful side effects. Kurt will turn into a lizard-like creature, and his mental state will be greatly affected and distorted. Shu Luo naturally does not want to directly use Kurt's plasma technology. The side effects are too great, and the effectiveness is too strong. Based on his deductions and tests over the past few days, as long as the effectiveness of this plasma technology is greatly weakened, the side effects will also be weakened without limits. While the effectiveness is at play, the side effects will be automatically excreted within the safe range of the human immune system, along with the body's digestive and rejection systems. It will not cause any harm to the human body. He plans to apply the weakened version of the plasma technology to adhesive bandages and medical bandages, which will only have the functions of stopping bleeding and protecting wounds compared to regular adhesive bandages and medical bandages. His plasma adhesive bandages and bandages will accelerate wound healing 3 times faster than natural healing. Although it is far from the effects of the complete plasma or Wolverine's self-healing ability, it is much better than conventional drugs. Moreover, plasma can be extracted from reptiles, and the cost is within a controllable range, making it completely possible to produce medical products that can be used by the general public. This is enough for him to revive Osborne Corporation and turn losses into profits. This is the key for him to let the major shareholders eat the big cake with peace of mind. He glanced at the time. It's about time to talk to Kurt. After all, we can't let him take the plasma at this time and turn into a lizard-like creature. In that case, it would be much more troublesome to obtain the plasma formula. And, Kurt in his human state is also a good research assistant and subordinate. For the future development of the company, just having an adhesive bandage is not enough. As a genius biologist, Kurt can help me develop more things. After finishing speaking, Shu Luo finished his last bite of food and began to clean up the mess on the table. But to be honest, the food I made can only fill the stomach, it doesn't taste like anything. Claude's cooking is still better. Shu Luo shook his head at his own cooking skills. After cleaning up everything, he left, heading to Osborne Corporation to find Kurt, who is currently working as a researcher in the company. Definitely, before leaving, he also put on some makeup. He applied a fake beard and wore a fisherman's hat and sunglasses, basically changing his appearance. Soon, he arrived downstairs at Osborne Corporation by car. At this moment, there was a sense of decay in the air at Osborne Corporation. There were fewer people working, and it felt sparse. And everyone carried a sense of frustration. After all, in the eyes of everyone, the company is about to collapse, so how can they not feel frustrated? Shu Luo walked to the front desk. "Hello, I'm looking for Kurt Connors." The receptionist didn't look up and sneered, "Don't bother, he's not here." Shu Luo raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "He was fired by the company. Kurt himself is always researching reptiles, and sometimes it delays his work. In addition, their research group has not produced any results. Besides, the company is already in a bad financial situation and can't afford to keep more idle people, so he was fired." Upon hearing this, Shu Luo narrowed his eyes slightly. Hearing this, Shu Luo was taken aback. Unexpectedly, Kurt was actually fired. But it also feels reasonable, after all, even Osborne himself is struggling to survive, constantly reducing staff. Kurt, because he was busy with plasma technology, sometimes delayed his normal work, so naturally he would be fired. Shu Luo immediately asked the other party for Kurt's home address. Of course, the front desk would not disclose such privacy to Shu Luo until Shu Luo offered $200. Immediately, he rushed towards Kurt's address. At the same time, Shu Luo frowned slightly. Now that Kurt has been fired and his life has been hit, he is likely to inject plasma to change the situation. He must stop it. Thinking of this, Shu Luo suddenly stepped on the accelerator. Boom. The car shot out, an old apartment building. Various facilities are also quite old, even the plaster on the walls is peeling off. The corridor is narrow, and many lights are not working due to long-term disrepair, making it dim. Entered one of them. The space is cramped and crowded, with various cheap daily necessities crowded in corners and on tables. The damaged sofa reveals yellow sponge inside. Inside the kitchen. The faucet is broken at the joint, spraying a stream of water. Clattering. The sound of hurried slippers hitting the floor. A middle-aged woman hurriedly ran up. "Kurt, the faucet is broken again." She wrapped the gap in the faucet with a towel to stop the water from spraying. The overhead lights flickered, sometimes bright and sometimes dim. She looked up. "Kurt, our lights have been broken for a week, let's find time to replace them." Clang. The refrigerator was opened, and the food inside was almost depleted. "Kurt, our food is running out too." She closed the refrigerator. She wiped off the water splashed on her face, walked out of the kitchen, and wiped the water on her waistband that had been used for several years. All of this shows the poverty of this family. On the sofa, a middle-aged man with a broken arm sat despondently, his head hanging down. He looked up at his wife, his face bitter. "Martha, I was fired." Hearing the other party's words, Martha stopped in her tracks. She looked at her husband, her hands wiping the water in confusion. What? What did you say? Kurt spoke. I received a call. The company told me not to go anymore. I was fired. Martha was a little dazed. Then, what about our future expenses? We are running out of food at home. The faucet, the kitchen lights are broken, and the toilet in the bathroom is always having problems. Martha was at a loss. The money I earn from working alone in the convenience store is completely insufficient for the expenses of this family. Martha sat next to Kurt, grabbing his leg. Can you find a job as soon as possible? Kurt clenched his hand slightly, lowered his head, and said ashamedly, I am a disabled person, and I am already middle-aged. Because of long-term research, I am out of touch with society. It's difficult to find a job quickly. Martha fell silent after hearing this. Neither of them expected to encounter a midlife crisis. The air in the entire room became unusually oppressive and heavy. This middle-aged couple seemed to be struggling to breathe. Especially Kurt. One hand tightly clutched onto his pants, head lowered. It's all my fault. If I wasn't disabled, I wouldn't have desperately researched the plasma for curing my arm. If I hadn't been so focused on researching the plasma, I wouldn't have occasionally delayed my work, and I wouldn't have been fired. If I weren't disabled, if I were a normal person, I could find many things that normal people can do, and I wouldn't be facing this situation. It's all my fault. I'm useless, and I've burdened you. Martha immediately hugged Kurt. Don't be like this, Kurt. Let's think of another solution. If it really doesn't work, I'll go ask my parents for some money. Martha's parents have always looked down on Kurt, always mocking and ridiculing him, so Martha was very angry and hadn't contacted her parents for a long time. If it weren't for the family's difficulties, Martha would never have asked for their help. Hearing Martha's words, Kurt felt even more distressed. Martha quickly dialed her parents' number. On the other end, Martha's mother's voice came through. What's wrong? Are you facing some difficulties? Otherwise, why would you think of us? Is Osborne Company about to collapse? Did he lose his job? Or has he already lost his job? Martha's mother immediately guessed the purpose of Martha's call. And so, she began to mock and ridicule. I told you before, not to marry him. A man with a severed hand, who can't earn money, and is just a bookworm. I told you, he won't amount to anything. You didn't listen, and now you come to us? You let him come up with the money, can he? He's just a useless waste. I told you, marrying a shoeshiner would be better than him. Before Martha could speak, her mother's cold mockery made Martha shudder all over. Kurt, who was beside her, felt even more heartbroken upon hearing this. He reached out and hung up the phone. What are you doing? I'm still borrowing money, Martha said. Kurt lifted his head and looked at the cluttered coffee table. Among them was a small glass bottle filled with blood-red liquid, reflecting a dangerous blood-colored light. He gritted his teeth. Martha, don't say anything. Let me solve this myself. My plasma has already been tested on a crippled rabbit, and it perfectly grew a new leg. I'm planning to inject the plasma into myself and regenerate my hand. As long as I recover, I can do manual labor, take on odd jobs. We can support ourselves. Saying that, he reached out towards the glass bottle filled with plasma. Martha immediately grabbed his hand and shook her head. No, this won't do. You're a scientist, you know. One successful case is not enough to prove that plasma can be safely used on the human body. This kind of experiment can't be rushed, you need to try it multiple times. Kurt's body trembled. I've already been fired by Osborne, I don't have the equipment and tools to continue the experiments. And we're barely getting by now, I don't have time to experiment. He gritted his teeth. Martha, let go of me. Let me completely solve this matter this time. I promise, this time it will definitely be successful, and we will be able to get out of our predicament. Saying that, he felt a surge of determination from somewhere, broke free from his wife's embrace, and grabbed the bottle of plasma. Kurt's eyes slightly reddened. I will definitely succeed this time. Bang! The half-closed door was pushed open. Hold on. A calm and powerful voice sounded.